Good morning, 694th. Welcome to your Post 2 Yellow Ribbon event. Good morning, 694th. Welcome to your Post 2 Yellow Ribbon event. Sorry about that. We'll get that muted. We have one college this morning that I'm going to show some slides for. Unfortunately, Jeff could not be with me this morning and be able to talk to you, but we're going to go ahead and show the ECU slides so you can be aware of the programs they have, and then we're going to go into the Wounded Warrior project. So here are the ECU slides. And if you have any college questions, you can put them in the comments, and we will try to either get you that information or we can get back to you with that. So next we have Wounded Warrior Project.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cheryl Hussein. I'm an outreach specialist with the Wounded Warrior Project. We are located here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, off of Village Drive. I am honored, first of all, to speak with you and share with you the significance of the Wounded Warrior Project and our purpose and how we are here to help you. Our mission is to honor and empower our wounded warriors. That being said, what is our purpose? Our purpose is to, excuse me. Our purpose is to first recognize the service and sacrifice that our warriors and their families have given to our country and to help them in fulfilling lifelong goals and missions, to help them to become well adjusted to the generations and their wounds serving our nation. So when we look at what sacrifices our warriors have made, things that we look at is how do we help them transition out of service and back into civilian life. We offer programs through connection, physical health and wellness, mental health and wellness, and then programs through career transition, financial health and wellness, and VA benefits and health counseling. So myself, I am part of our alumni team. So within our alumni team, we have programs and events that get you out there back connecting with your family support teams, your peers, your community partners, your resource centers. We host events that we hope that will want to get you out of the house, get your family members out of the house, and get you essentially back involved. To highlight within our mental health and wellness, we have two programs of highlight. One program is our Project Odyssey. This program is a 12-week mental health and wellness program that is adventure-based. So we get you back out there. We get you to enhance your resiliency You're going to take a 4-day challenge. You're going to goal set, and you're going to fulfill something that maybe you have not done before, whether that's a zip lining adventure, a whitewater rafting adventure, something that's new and perhaps challenging. You'll do that yourself independently as a warrior, and then you'll get out there with your significant other, a spouse, and together you'll do that as one cohesive unit. Future down the road, there are talks to have this program be set up to do this as a family. This is all in hopes to bring that unit together. Another program we have is what we call WWP Talk. This is a one-on-one telephonic health support system. It's a 1-week telephone call that is a judgment-free zone. You get to talk to a dedicated person for a time frame that is convenient for you, and it becomes what we consider reliable emotional support. Next, I'll highlight a few of our programs that fall under our physical health and wellness. We have what we consider our soldier ride. That's where we have our both recumbent and traditional bicycles, where you go out there and you do multiple day cycling events. This helps build your strength and confidence and shared activities with your peers and your support systems. You build, once again, strong bonds in teams. This can be done with your family support members, amongst alumni, and amongst peers. Within that, we also have our physical health and wellness teams. These teams are going to help with not only your nutrition, your goal settings, exercise nutrition. Overall, what does a healthy lifestyle look for you? When we talk about career and VA benefits counseling, and I do apologize because we have what we call a program directory, and it's not necessarily categorized as that header. We kind of have it as financial wellness. VA benefits, VA benefits. I apologize. That's a big issue for a lot of people. When you initially transition out of the service, you may receive a rating, which you may not 100% agree with. And or as time goes on, something may change in your health. That is not to say that you cannot have your rating reviewed. Within the Wounded Warrior Project, we are also what is considered a servicing Veteran Service Office, a VSO. So what that means to you is that we have teammates who are our legal advisors who can legally advise you and have your benefits reviewed at no cost to you. So all you have to do is request a benefits referral, have them review your VA packet, and they can help submit forward to the Department of Veterans Affairs another review of your Veteran Affairs review. I apologize. The proper terminology for that is escaping me for right now. But you may need to increase, and they can help you with that. That's the bottom line. At no cost to you. Another big program within this umbrella is Warriors to Work. Whether you need your resume to go from what did I do in the last X amount of years in service to how is that going to look on a federal and or civilian resume or both? We have specialists who can help put that into writing for you. We have the same specialists, career specialists, who can help you get interview prep, who can help you with the Dress for Success portion, and also who can help you get into expos and host expos that you can attend to link you up with those Fortune 500s and the local agencies to help you get those jobs. So, all encompassing Wounded Warrior Project is your one stop shop as a veteran transitioning out of the service, in your transition out and in to the workforce, or to how to become the perfect fisherman, or just how to reconnect with your family, your peers, or your community. And all of our services you have already earned by serving in the service. They are available to you, your family support members, and your families. So by registering, you have now become a part of the organization. Or once you register, you become part of the organization. And in doing so, the services become afforded to you. If any of you all would like a digital program directory guide, please get in touch with your unit point of contact, and I will make sure to have those sent over to include a registration form, and we can help you. So thank you for your service and everything you do, and allowing me to have the opportunity to speak to you this morning, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. If you guys have any questions on Wounded Warrior Project, you can put them in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move on to Sporty King. All right, go ahead. And
Yeah, we're
you
going
should be
to
able to
try
share
to
your
move
screen
on to
now,
Sporty King. Yeah, let me see. Here we go. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. One of all times, I just had to put a cough drop in my mouth because I'm choking over here. Oh, my gosh. So let's see. Let me make this happen with the cough drop in my mouth. All right. Okay. You may recall that last time we spoke, we talked about how important it is to CYA and take care of your PMS, right? Well, that was food for thought. But after all the celebrating and eating that we can do, we next have to consider our dietary options. So here are our dietary options. Number one, you may have the Urkel denial diet. Anybody ever heard of the Urkel denial diet? And I got a little delay on my other computer to see your comments. The Urkel denial diet. All right, and that's DIET. Did I eat that? So that's one, okay? Then you have the lesser known, and I'm going to give you a little bit more time for this one, the Dawn Key pet diet. Has anybody heard of the Dawn Key pet diet? Let me see if you got that in the chat. If you've heard of the Dawn Key pet diet. Let me give you a couple of seconds to put that in there. Nope, negative. Nope. Okay, nope, nope. Oh, goodness. Oh, that's great. Because y'all need to know this option. All right, negative. All right, one more negative. One more. Okay, 5 no's make a deal. Here we go. Here's the Dawn Key pet diet. Just think of her name and say it 3 times. Dawn Key, Dawn Key, Dawn Key. Yeah, keep your ass out of the refrigerator. So that's what we got to do, is remember that we have the dietary options that are going to make all the difference in the world for us. All right. All right. So look, now that you know your dietary choice. Oh, okay. Let me slow. Wait, I'm slowing down because like I said, wait, y'all, I'm being technologically savvy today. I got a computer going here with the slides, and then I'm watching for your comments. So I'm gonna try to catch you. I'm gonna try to catch your comments, and if I can, oh yeah, you got the donkey there. I see it. Yeah, yeah. All right, donkey. There you go, Charlene, Charlie, Charlie. Charlie? Yes, Charlie. Yeah, there you go. Oh, donkey. Yeah, that's why, like if you ever tell the joke, just tell them to say donkey. If we were in person, that's what I actually would have had you do as out loud. Just say donkey 3 times fast. And then the faster you say it, the more donkey comes out. Donkey, donkey, donkey. Then you go, donkey, donkey, donkey. Keep your ass out of the refrigerator. I'm gonna die here. Okay, anyway. Now that you know your dietary choices, let me introduce you to 2 children. First of all, this is Steve. Steve's got a message for us. Okay, Steve's got a message for us about something that we actually taught him. And he's happy to remind us of this message, and that is faith and patience. And this is Susie. Susie is here to remind us why you have to have that faith and patience. You see, we teach children we're all in this together and how to keep the faith. Yet sometimes we forget that children mimic and mirror adults. And they have to remind us to keep the faith and be patient. Susie and Steve are the reasons that I asked the next 2 questions. And get ready because I want you to put some stuff in the chat right now, okay? Here are the next 2 questions. The first one, how many of you consider yourself masters of change? I want you to put a C. You can just put a C in the chat if you consider yourself a master of change. You just love change. All right? Put that. Let me see what you got. How many of you consider yourself masters of change? And I'm going to pause and let the delay happen so I can see the comments come up. Okay, there's one there. Thank you, Charlie, for being first. Or maybe only. Okay. Okay, we got 2 masters of change. Cool. All right. Okay, they're starting to come in. Yeah, sometimes you have to think about it. That happens. And again, I know I got the delay, so I want to, try to pace myself here. Because you got another choice coming up. All right. So the master of change, you can still keep putting your C in, but I want you to get ready for this next one. How many of you, well, I ain't so crazy about change, but I like a good challenge. So I'm a master of challenge. I want you to put an M. Put an M in the chat. If you say, well, I'm not so crazy about change, but I love a good challenge. Put an M in the chat. C for masters of change, M for challenge. What we got here? Here we go. The M's starting to come in. And the M's, once you get 3 M's, you're going to start to be tasty because that, good. Okay, yeah. Okay, here comes some M's. So we got 3. M's starting to come in. Good. M's starting to come in. Oh, M's coming in a little faster than the change, the C's. Did you notice that? I want you to notice that. Because y'all know, now come on, y'all know me. Y'all know I got something behind this. All right. Okay, cool. Okay. Keep putting them in there. That's all right. Because here's my next question. Well, here's my next observation. What if I told you that change is just challenge with an LLE in the middle? CHALLE. And it's our LLEs that make the difference in how we look at winning. And it shapes our definition, excuse me, of what it takes to win. So, think about it. What lesson will you get from this next episode in your life? Because that's what it is. It's an episode. You see, an LLE is a life learning experience. Life's learning experience. Your life is the big picture. Deployment, reintegration. This is one of the lessons that you're going to be getting, that you're constantly getting and you're going through right now. So you have to ask yourself, what lessons did I get from the deployment? And if you're multiple deployed, what lessons did I learn about getting back together that I didn't exercise the last time? It's always about learning. See, we talk about being lifelong learners, and the reason so many of us say, "Well, I'm not crazy about change," because we think change is this big thing. But I believe we talked about it last month. That change is small. See, change is incremental, and you didn't do the deployment like this. You did it one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, and then back to 1 week. Excuse me. So you have to be conscious of just knowing that it's what your life learning experiences that makes a difference. If it was your first deployment, it's an accomplishment, and one that you did in not just increments, but I call them small bites. And if it's your next deployment, if it was your next deployment, then it was an accomplishment that you did in different bites from your previous deployment. But rest assured that change can be about winning, and winning has many definitions. In this limited time, and the colleges gave us a little extra time, but I'm not going to try to extend it. I'm going to address winning by talking about accomplishments while sharing three of my LLEs, three of my life learning experiences that actually shape my definition. So to tell you about my LLEs, the first thing I'm going to do is take you back to 2018 when I competed in the Toastmasters International World Championship of Public Speaking. Now, for those of you not familiar with Toastmaster and the contest is part of the annual accumulation of the international conference. And that year it was to be held in Chicago. I'm in Charlotte right now. And it was supposed to be in Chicago. Over 35,000 people, members a year around the world participate each year. And the numbers dwindle per level. To get to the World Championship, the member who's competing must win at their club, area, division, district levels, and then they advance to Chicago, in that case, because each year it's in a different location, to showcase in the region, and then 9 will make the finals for the chance to be crowned the world champion of public speaking. In May 2018, I advanced to the district level in North Carolina and finished second place of the 10 champions representing our divisions. And after the contest, several people expressed that they thought I did a great job and sadly wished that I had won first place. Don't misunderstand my appreciation for their support, but what kept going through my mind was when I stood before my club in the next week's meeting, and I said to them, I warmly reminded them, I said, you know what? My next speech title is going to be, you still have to win second place. You still have to win second place. You see, there were 8 other division champions on that stage, and I was the first of the 10 to speak. The guy who won was speaker number 8. And if you fast forward, he ended up winning the regional round and went on to finish as one of the top 9 speakers, one of the world finalists. Not a bad person to come in second to. I didn't know that at the time. But my point is that we've replaced accomplishment with championship. See, so we ignore the accomplishments sometimes in lieu of expecting someone to be a championship. And so my life learning experience number 3 is that you still have to win second place. And I'm not saying that you don't play to win, but that you don't have to come in first every time in order to see yourself as successful. You still have to win second place. You see, in 1996, I actually did go to the World Championship. And since Toastmasters only announces the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st place winners, condescending order, and when they announced 3rd, they didn't say my name. When they announced 2nd, they didn't say my name. When they announced 1st, they didn't say my name. So when I got home and people say, Sporty, how'd you do in the contest? I tell them, oh, I tied for 4th. with the other 5 that didn't take first, second, or third. That's called reframing. That's called reframing, right? And so is this. Have you ever had to reframe anything? It's not lying. But again, it's the same as similar to how we think we have to replace accomplishments with championship. We have to reframe. We have to think about why we're doing what we're doing and how to keep going forward. But here's the lesson that I learned in 1996, excuse me, which helped me in 2018. I'm going to be coughing, and I got the cough drop in my mouth. I got to tough it out, right? Okay, but yeah, that was a good one. Okay, so after the contest, here's what I learned. Lifelong lesson. Here's what I learned in '96 that helped me in 2018. After the contest was over, I met 3 types of people. The first was the people who came up to me and said, "Oh my God, you were great. You were a great speaker. I thought you should have won." You know, I agree with them, right? The second type of person were the ones that came up to me and said, "Man, you were great. You should have at least been in the top 3, right?" Because they only go 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I agree. But check this out. Here's the key, and here's the life learning experience. The first type of person, the third type of person that came up to me was the one that stayed with my spirit longer. Because that's the person that came up to me and said, "I really appreciated your message. I really appreciated your message." And then, as my fellow club, area, division, district, region, family, and friends all hugged and kissed me with pride and told me that I was still their champion, that's when I decided that winning is personal. WIN. What I need. Excuse me. Each of us has a personal win that redefines our success through our accomplishments. And we have people who see us as their champions, need us to understand what our personal win is, and for us to continue to get it so that they can, which is their personal win. So winning is personal. WIN. And just like in 1996, in 2018, I had people come up to me and say, life learning lesson number 2, "I really appreciated your message." Let me see if anybody's got something in the chat there. Has anybody ever said to you, "I really appreciated your message"? How often do we say thank you to our family members? Sometimes we forget to do that. All of these are little samples of ways we can do it. But winning is personal. Get your personal win. So let me take you even further back to one of my funniest life learning lessons that I've enjoyed in my life. I've enjoyed this lesson. In 1989, I began coaching community league basketball in Bolingbrook, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 23 years. I had a 7th grade team. And because of my belief in the importance of self-control, I named them the controllers. In practice, I taught my boys that it was important to begin to control their emotions for future success, and that this lesson will become clearer to them years down the road after having me as their coach. Before each game, instead of huddling and screaming a war cry, we would huddle, press our hands together and downward, and whisper like a train easing into a stop. Shh, control. We proceeded to lose all 13 of our games by 10 points or more. All right. Now, I don't know. I don't remember if I ever switched to letting them scream. But I do remember that the next year, coaching 8th grade, you get a whole new team. I believed it was important to let kids energize themselves with a hearty war cry. You see, as a coach, as a leader, you've got to learn from your staff, from your team, okay, from your kids. Okay, but I also let them, what else I learned? I let them name themselves. I said, you know what? No more me naming them the control. I let them name themselves. And check it out. They named themselves the troops in recognition of, of the prayers for our country dealing with the Persian Gulf War. Let me see. I got some comments. I want to thank you, Shamia. Yay, always good to see you, Shamia. I appreciate your messages from last time. All right. All right. But they named themselves the troops. We finished 4th in our 16 division, crushed the opponents through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, and then we lost in the championship by 1 point when the best kid in the league hit a 3-point shot from the key with 12 seconds to go. Remember I talked to you about winning is personal, WIN, what I need? I got my personal win because Rick, one of my kids, turned to me and looked at me. He said, call a timeout, coach. I said, right. Call a timeout. And with 8 seconds to go, we still had 8 seconds to go. We found ourselves in control of our own destiny. Well, I already told you that we lost. So we missed the shot. That's not important. What's important is we got a chance to take the shot. And it was a good shot. We even got the rebound. But the clock went off before the ball left Alex's hands when he went back up. And he made the shot, so we could have won. But here's the key. Our opponent was scared because they could not understand why we wouldn't panic and give up. But you see, winning means that it's always too late to panic. It's never too early to prepare. Calm your spirit and plan to take another shot. Until time expires, your life is in your hands with the possibility of winning. Let me see if anybody's got any winning comments on this chat before I move on. Like I say, there's a delay, and now you'll see I ain't got my glasses on. All right, we're good. Okay, still here. All right. But let me ask you this question. How will you define your personal win? You see, being publicly crowned champions didn't define winning for my troops. How they played the game did. And each of them went on to become members of championship teams because they knew life learning experience number 1, that they could call a timeout and get one more shot. Have you learned that? You can just call a timeout and get one more shot. We're going to be talking about communication in my second session, and there'll be an example there about just calming your nerves and trying to make yourself communicate properly. Call a timeout and get one more shot. But I think more important than that, they knew that they could get that shot because they had developed a new sense of who they were. And just as I infused that belief into their spirits, I continue to carry it in mine. You see, I'm not defined by my titles. I'm defined by my accomplishments. Though I've had losses, one thing I never do, I never see myself as a loser. I don't lose, and I don't see myself as a loser. You see, losing is a state of mind where we willingly surrender to the possibility that we have no more options. And when you decide that you've run out of options, you decide to ignore your creativity, what you've accomplished to survive, and you bury your success. So I challenge you to change your definition of success, and you'll change your definition of what it means to win. But before we go on, I have an announcement to make, an accomplishment that I want. My latest accomplishment is that I learned some new technology on Thursday. So this is also what I wanted to talk to you about the chat. I learned some new technology on Thursday. Because I suggest that you get better at what you're doing, you know, I'm always talking about change, it's always talking about getting better. I consistently work to be better at what I do so that I can serve you better. I'd like you to use 2 to 3 minutes of my presentation to fill in a survey about this presentation. Okay, this is a commercial. In a few slides, I'm going to put up a slide with a QR code and a bonus code for you to get a free ebook of my collection of over 240 affirmations. That's what I call my acronyms. I call them affirmations because they're acronyms that become affirmations. So just, and CYA and PMS are both included in that book. But they're over, like I said, there's over 240 winners in there. If you remember from last month, we had faith, feeling as if there's hope. We had focus, finding ourselves creates unlimited success. We had stuff, situations that unleash our focus and faith. So I've got those, and I call them affirmations because what they do is they take the word and not just put a letter to them, but they define the word and let it become an affirmation so that when you hear it, you have something to say, to think about it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause and put it on the clock. And then I want to let you fill it out, follow the code and fill it out. And then I'll make my closing comments. But that's in a couple of slides. I wanted to let you know that up front. For now, I need you to get ready to type in the chat. Okay. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, one at a time. All I want to know from you, just like we did the C and the M for change and challenge, all I want to know is if it would be hard or easy to answer the question. Okay? If you think it would be hard for you to answer the question, I want you to just put an H in the chat. If you think it would be easy for you to answer the question, I want you to put an E in the chat. Okay? We're not talking, that's not hard, right? Let me see what we got here. All right? You won my friendship. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna act like he's talking. I'm at Micah. I'm gonna act like you're talking to me. All right. But all I do is win. Yes. Don't you just love that song too? All I do is win, win. Yeah. Sheena, you can't put. Oh, you're practicing? Okay, because I haven't asked the questions yet, unless my slide. Look at y'all, Benjamin. Don't put nothing. I haven't put the question up yet. My slides didn't go ahead of my pants. All right. But I've got 4 questions. So wait for the questions. I'm going to give you them one at a time. And then you're going to either put H if you think it's a hard question for you to answer, E if you think it would be an easy question for you to answer. Okay. Here's the first question. All right. Okay. Win, agree. All you do is win. All right. Amen. Thank you. Hey, that's support, Parker. Appreciate you, man, for supporting win. Amen. That's what it's about. Like I said, I got to slow down because it's a delay in the comments. Okay. But here's the first question. Tell me this. Do you think it will be hard or easy to name 2 or 3 teachers who aided your journey through school? Just an H or an E. Hard or easy to name 2 to 3 teachers who aided your journey through school? Let's see what we got. Okay, we got hard, easy. Hard, easy. Easy. 2 easy in a row. Another easy. A lot of easy. They're starting to get easy. 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 Okay. Easy. 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 All right, I'm gonna take about 3 more. There's 1, there's 2 with a hard, easy, hard, another easy, another hard, and there's another easy. Okay, all right. Second question. Do you think it'll be hard or easy to name the last 5 Heisman Trophy winners? Hard or easy to name the last 5 trophy winners? I hear you, John. School was a long time ago, wasn't it? And I know that's why I say we're not worrying about the reasons, okay? But I hear you, John. Look at John Valerie says it's gonna be easy to name the last 5 Heisman Trophy winners. Hello, okay. All right. Hard. Few more hard. Okay. Easy for David too. Okay, David Gonzalez. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. Don't put him in there yet. Don't put him in there. Oh, you know what? Yeah, do that. Y'all got time. You got time. So if you think you know the last five Heisman Trophy winners, go on and put them in the chat. Because spoiler alert, I'm gonna put the names up there. There you go, David. Yeah, it would be easy because you could just Google search. Right. Yeah, easy is relative, isn't it? All right. Okay. Hard. All right. Can't use Google. There you go, Helen. Make the rules. Make the rules. Helen. Okay, I hope I pronounced it right, my brother. Yeah, make the rules. You can't use Google. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, see, like we're going to be talking about communication. Yeah, you got to be clear about what you're saying. That's why our second session is called Do You Hear What I Mean? Yeah, it's not just is it hard or easy, but here's also the restrictions. You can't use Google. Okay, good. And there you go. Google knows definitely hard without Google. You got that right. Yep. What's a Heisman? Oh, excellent. Heisman. First of all, your answer would be hard because you don't even know what a Heisman is. But a Heisman Trophy winner is like the MVP of college. Every year, the number one player in college football wins what they call the Heisman Trophy Award. It was named after somebody Heisman. All right, so thanks for that question, Charlie. All right, yeah, that's what a Heisman is. Hey, that's my battle. All right, okay, cool in the gang. All right, next question, hard or easy? And thank y'all for the comments. All right. Would it be hard or easy to name two people who taught you something worthwhile? Two people who taught you something worthwhile. This time we don't have to go as far back as we did with naming the teachers, but two teachers who taught you something worthwhile. Bernard won the Heisman 5 times. Okay, a legend in his own mind. That's what that's called. Too easy for T. All right, to name two people that taught you something worthwhile. Yeah, the easies are coming in now. You'll say, "Oh, good, the question's getting easy. I can participate more." All right, y'all, cool in the gang. All right, good. Since they keep coming, I'm gonna let it go a little bit longer. Thank y'all. Easy. Spell it out in all caps. Bam. All right, I hear you. I heard that. All right, cool in the gang. Ooh, so easy. That's great. See, that's great for this reason. Appreciation. Appreciation that you can name. Two is not a whole lot. Okay, but the key is that can you name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? The more people you start to be able to list that you feel taught you something is important, because what that does is it continues to fill your soul and your spirit, knowing who I can go to when I need some advice and my next lesson. That's in the PMS. That's the M. That's the mental, taking care of yourself mentally, because you know who you can go to get advice. But then it's also the S, it's the spiritual, because I need to know, maybe I don't need advice, but I need to know who I can go to, who taught me how to deal with this pain, who can tell me how to be more patient and have faith, like Steve offered us at the beginning. Okay, final question. All right, hard or easy? Name the last 5 winners of the Miss America contest. Okay, so maybe we didn't know the Heisman, what a Heisman is, but what about Miss America? Last 5 winners of the Miss America contest. Now, by the way, those 2 guys who said the last, unless you're Googling, the last 5 Heisman Trophy winners, put those in there and let me see what you got. And even if you had to Google it, the key is you'll see when I put this all together. So hard for that last. Oh, go on. Alan can name the last 5 Miss America. All right. Yeah. She's the easiest one, Miss America. All right, cool. No clue. All right, and see. Not North Carolina, David. Good. This is be hard to name the last 5 Miss Americas. Cool in the gang. All right. All right. Okay, so we've got your hard and your easy responses. Just so you saw 1 and 3 where most people said easy, 2 and 4 most people said hard. But here's the key. These questions are from a bigger set and express the philosophy of Charles Schultz. Everybody ever heard of Charles Schultz? Let me see in this. Let me see. Yeah, we're gonna quiz now. Who's heard of Charles Schultz? You can put a Y or an N, okay? Or especially a Y. Forget the N. If you've heard of Charles Schultz, there you go. Yes. Okay. Number 4 is obvious for me. Okay. Avi for me. All right. Yes. No. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you can put them both. Not Charles. No. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Good. We got some people that say they've heard of Charles Schultz. Well, look, those of you who said you heard of Charles Schultz, can you throw something in there of who he is? Let me see that. Who he is. He feels smart and beautiful. Okay, they were all named. They were all named Miss America. Oh, clever, clever. Yeah, nice, Jose. That nice, nice. Okay, if you heard of Charles Schultz, tell me what you think. Why you know? Good, great. Taylor knows. Taylor knows. That's a good clue. That's a good clue of who Charles Schultz is. When you hear good grief, who do you think of? All right. All right, here we go. Okay, okay, some more yeses. All right, yes. There's peanuts. Good one, Shati. Shatisha. Satisha. All right, peanuts. The older the older soldiers will know. Yeah, that's old school. Bam! And then after all the hints, break it down. Shamia. He wrote Charlie Brown, which is the Peanuts script. The Peanuts comic strip. All right, Charlie Brown. But check this out, back to our questions. As you can read, you see the object is not so much to answer the questions as it is to consider them. Here are the other 4 questions that I asked from the list of what he considers to be the hard questions. The 5 wealthiest people in the world, the last half dozen Academy Award winners, the last decade, 10 years worth of World Series winners, and the last 10 Nobel or Pulitzer Prize winners. Okay. Oh, not the adults said wah wah wah. Yeah. Oh, that guy. Yeah. Y'all. There we go. All right. Cool. All right. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. All right. Thank y'all. Thanks for playing. But yeah, this is his philosophy. Okay. And of what and before I move on to the easy question, those are the hard ones. So I just picked those 2 for us to weigh something, but there's a bigger point coming up. Now, those of you, I think it was 2 guys, said that they could name the 5 Heisman Trophy winners, and granted, they didn't say they could do it without Google. But if you wrote them down, and that's what I should have thought to say to you, just write them down for yourself would be fine. But here they are. Okay, so see if you really, so put a Y in there if you would have had those 5. And Daniel, I was lying. And you weren't lying, Daniel. You were reframing, right? You were reframing. David, I said Daniel. David, you were reframing. There you go. And participating. I appreciate that, my brother. Thank you so much. All right. But here the 5 are. And you know what's funny? I did this presentation in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago in person. And when I put this up, somebody said, "No, that's not right." I said, "Yes, it is." I said, they said, "No." And they said, "Well, Bryce Young and Joe Burrow, they had said those." I said, "Oh, I didn't have the names." What I had done was I had dusted this presentation off that I hadn't done in over a year. And all I did was update it with the new person, Caleb Williams. And I didn't put the last 3. I didn't move the list along. So they fact checked me from the audience, and I even said, I said, "Hey, you could Google it, but I got it right." When this presentation was over, I Googled it and saw that I didn't have them right. And I share that with you because my next session, I apologized to them. We were having fun. They didn't care. But I said, "Let me apologize to you because what I want to say to you is I had the information wrong." So you may not remember, but one thing I talk about is the 3 R's: the research, the real stuff, and the resource. The research is often what you'll see on screens. The real stuff is, does it apply to you? What's the real stuff? What's really going on in my life that makes that relevant? And then the resource is the person who delivers the information. I was the resource and I was delivering faulty information. It wasn't updated. So if people just took it for granted, well, yeah, what Sporty said, that's it. That, boom. Now all these people walked away and they didn't have the correct answer to the last five. Choose your messengers carefully and recognize that you're carefully being chosen as a messenger. That goes back to one thing we've talked about. Children mimic and mirror adults. How you act is going to impact how someone else acts. And it doesn't have to be your children, doesn't have to be a partner, it could be your battle buddy, anybody, a coworker, anybody. So choose your messages carefully. So I didn't mind, just like David, I was lying. I didn't mind telling them that I got it wrong. See, and it was funny because one of the soldiers during the break, I was telling him, I said, yeah, I messed up. He said, I thought it was part of your speech that you were just showing that, that you had to get it, there was a hard question, and because I went back and forth a little with the guys in the audience who told me that it was wrong, and they couldn't, unconditionally tell me it was wrong. They would say, no, I don't think that's right. And so we talked about it. Me, I made something up. But he said, yeah, I thought that was just part of you showing it, doing the interaction and how important, because I did say to them, hey, if this is wrong, I'm going to update it because that's important. I talked about the 3 R's. But I said, well, no, I'm not going to hide the fact that I actually did not have it right. We're going to be talking about communication in a little while. How often, remember what we say? You don't have to be right all the time. You have to understand. You have to remember we talked about last time whose eyes you're looking at the world through. We did our categories: uncles, aunts, older children, middle children. Whose eyes are you looking at the world through? Because that's going to make the difference of how you come across as a resource. Okay, so what you say? That's a word. Amen. Okay, thank you. Amen. See, now we got amen going on out. And I don't know since I wasn't watching it, but that is a word. And amen. So thank you. I believe you're talking about the lion, Shamia. Thank you. And then, of course, Miss America. Those are the last 5. And look at that. I had to laugh when I saw it. I said, I think that one was from North Carolina. Yeah, 4 years ago, Nia Franklin, Miss North Carolina, won Miss America. Bam! All right. That's why, what's important to you? What's important to you? If it's important to you, fact check it. So that when you argue your passion, you have the right ammunition to talk about. That's what drill weekends are all about, isn't it? That's what the practice are. That's why we go to work. No company is ever finished with a day's work. It's always practicing, working toward completion, working toward profits, family members. You're always, the children are getting older. You're working toward that. Your relationship is getting older. You're working toward keeping it fresh. Everything is about, what do we talk about? Change? Increments and bite sizes. That's what we want to make sure that we're doing. Okay, so those were the ones that Charles Schultz said were easy. Okay, where was I? But here's his point. The people who make a difference in your life are not the ones who help you with, are the ones who care and help you get your personal win. See, here are the other 4 questions that he considers easy. 3 friends who help you through. A few people who made you feel special. 5 people who you enjoy spending time with. Yeah, it's important. Who do you enjoy spending time with? And are you making that effort? And a half a dozen heroes whose stories that have inspired you. These are what are considered the easy questions. And they're from what I call a joy list. A joy list, JOY, just one you. And again, when you think about reframing, and this is one of my affirmations, joy list, just one you. Even if someone says, oh my God, only you would come up with that. Well, I said, well, when someone says that to me, I said, oh, so in other words, if I didn't come up with it, we would never have that. We would never have that idea. We would never get that blessing. See, that's you. What's the joy that you bring into other people's lives? Because I'm asking you, Charles Schultz is asking you to name three people, three friends, five people, few people. When somebody else does it, is your name one of the names that they come up with? Because there's something that you bring into their life. And we have to accept that. Remember, you know, I always say this. Well, you don't know I always say, but you heard me say, I hope you do. And that is, there's a high calling on your life as a military family. America asks you to turn your emotions on and off at the drop of an order, and you do it. But have you stopped to put yourself on these lists? Have you stopped to give yourself credit and a pat on the back? Ah, hey, just doing what I had to do. No, all I do is win. All I do is win. No, no, no. This is a gift and it's answering a calling. I definitely thank you for answering that call. Before we came on live, I was talking to Cheryl with Wounded Warriors, and I told her, I said, because she was telling me about her military background. I said, yeah, well, thank you for answering the call. I said, I didn't serve. I said, but I appreciate you and thank you for answering the call. So I thank all of you for continuing to answer that call. But remember, you know, that's the key that, and by the way, I stayed up a little longer because I wanted to let you know that you could take a screenshot of this. Let me get me out of the way in case I'm in, and let me see if, am I in the way? No, I'm not. What happened? It went forward? Oh, now I see why somebody was saying, answer the easy before. That thing is going forward. There. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay. All right. Let me move me out of the way. And if you want, you can take a screenshot of that so that you can see the other four questions. And as well as get the philosophy. People who make a difference in your life, because that's a word, Shamia. People make a difference in your life are not the ones with the most credentials, money, or the awards. They are the ones that care. Pass this on to those that made a difference in your life. Don't worry about tomorrow, the world coming to an end tomorrow. It's already today. It's already tomorrow in Australia. Okay. But that's also why I say TGIT. Thank God it's today, right? All right. So, but what they do, what people will also do is remind you that uh, winning is personal. WIN. Get your personal win. And that's why I created that, like I said, from Charles Schultz's thing, I called it the joy list, this second side. I'm not that worried about keeping a list of the hard questions. The hard questions are going to come. The joy comes into my life when I can look at the easy questions, not meaning that they're easy and I could take them for granted, but meaning that they're easy for me to use to fill my spirit so I can get the win and bring the joy into my life and into the lives that I touch. So you can screenshot that, okay? Meanwhile, this next slide is the one that I was telling you about in terms of my new technological accomplishment. And I want you to take this quick 2-minute quiz, okay? And there's the cover of the book that I'm going to be sending as a bonus. It's the cover of my affirmations book, all right? And you'll receive it when you add in your special code, which is 694. Coincidence? I don't think so. So it's going to ask you. So what you want to do is please scan the QR code, or let me see. I want to drop in. You can just go to the link. All right. Boom. I just put the link in the chat. If you'd rather do that, but scan the QR code or go to the link and fill out the survey for me if you don't mind, because you know, that's going to help me get better at thinking about what are some things that you liked that I would want to make sure I keep doing. What, you know, what words, Shamia, do I need to make sure I get that in? You know, or what are some things that you don't like that maybe I need to decide to take that out, or just rethink how I use it. All right. So please, I'm gonna put you on the clock. I'm gonna put you on the clock. All right. And then uh I'll close with my life learning experiences. So thank you. I don't have any music to play for you, but you're on the clock right now. So please go fill out that survey. I see a really good comment from Roger here, but my computer won't let me. Oh, here we go. Roger, I feel so cared for and appreciated through the support of Facebook. Hate I didn't get to meet everyone's family through a real supportive. Yo, amen. You know what, too, Roger? That is also again, yes, I thank Ken Martinson, and your leadership for making sure we get the event on. But that's something that there's going to be no AAR from Yellow Ribbon. So, but we got that comment there. And it might even be a good comment to put it on my survey. Either way, but it's a good point to share because it does make a difference. We got less than 2 minutes is about 30 seconds away. Okay. Yep. So thank you, Roger. Amen. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Okay. All right. And our 2 minutes are up. No, they're not. I lied, but they are now up. Boom. All right. So thank you to those of you who filled it out. And so now let me just close with my LLEs, just to refresh. All right. Always know and remember that you can call a timeout and get one more shot. Always remember to think and realize and make that comment. People will say to you, I really appreciated your message. Are you the resource that's allowing people to get their personal win by what you deliver? Are you on that second part of Charles Schultz? And then number 3, you still have to win second place. Again, not that you have to lower your goals and your standards and shoot for second. No, you shoot for first. But you have to recognize that you've got an accomplishment that makes a difference, that helps you become a winner. You see, life is about going from one puzzle to the next. You're either a small, medium, or large piece of every puzzle in your family, social, or business interactions. No matter what size puzzle piece you see yourself as, without you, the puzzle is called incomplete. I don't care if there's a 5 million piece puzzle and you see yourself as a small piece. It's incomplete without you. Maybe you're the small piece because you're a private. Maybe you're a medium piece because you're a sergeant. Maybe you're a larger piece because you're a general, or before you're a captain. Or maybe you're a larger piece because you're a parent. Maybe you're the medium piece because you're a child. Maybe you're a smaller piece because you're a coworker. See, every single aspect of your life, you're small, medium, or large, according to how you see it and how you reframe your existence. But don't see yourself as a loser. Always recognize that that's an important piece of the puzzle. Joy, joy with joy. Just when you, without you, the puzzle is incomplete. And you've just put through the puzzle in terms of your deployment. Our soldiers, you had to take care of yourself. You had to get that personal win for your mission to be successful. Everybody had to do their part to make the whole mission complete. And family members who stayed at home, you had to do your part, one person down. And you had to make sure that you covered that. And now, the research says that the challenge is who's back in charge now? Where do we fit? Again, it's the new normal. No. It's the now normal. Things are not the way they were when you separated. Things are the way they're going to be now that you're back together with the new tools. How are you going to use your new tools and recognize that you are one of the key tools? So recognize that, and also recognize that we are all masters of change, and we make what I call the decision to win every single day when we lay our heads down to go to sleep, because that's the bravest thing you can do. You have no guarantee that you're going to wake up. When we came on the broadcast today, some people put, and I love the joke when I have put good morning. Somebody put it's too early for it to be good. excuse me, and people commenting on that. You know, it's all in playful language. But that's a brave thing to do, is to lay your head down. Doesn't have to be to go sleep at night, just to take a nap. That's brave. Give yourself credit for it. I also thank you for being brave enough to join me, Steve, and Susie as we, we want to make sure that we remind you and thank you, not just for your service, but thank you for answering the call and making the decision to win. God bless you, and I'll see you in a couple. Ciao.
Thank you, Sporty. We're going to move on to our, since our finance person is not on yet, we're going to go ahead and move on to Ashley Higgins. She is with IBHS. And let me just share my screen so that she and you can see the slides. All right, there we go. Ashley, you can go ahead with your presentation. Well, I see you're on, but she may be having some technical issues. So, Chaplain Windley, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I can. We'll go ahead and move ahead to your slides, and we'll have you do yours.
Very good.
Go ahead, Chaplain.
All right. Thank you, Sergeant Martinson. Well, welcome home, everybody. This is Chaplain Windley, the 113th Sustainment Brigade Chaplain. I had a chance to meet quite a few of you when I was down at the border mission this past June, and I'm glad everybody is home, and I know you're transitioning back in. I will tell you that I do have the privilege of coming down to New Bern on March 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I'll be spending the entire weekend with you, and I'm looking forward to maybe catching up one-on-one at that point. But what I wanted to briefly share with you today, it's not too terribly many slides, but it's just on communication. And I will tell you in full confession, after 30 years of marriage, I'm still learning how to communicate. I just don't know if I get it right sometimes, but that is just a practiced art that we need to stay on top of with our spouse, with our partners, with our significant others. So really all I wanted to share with you today was just the basics. There's a lot of communication techniques out there, and we're not going to have time to get in depth in all of them, but there are some books at the very end of this slide presentation that you'll be able to look up if you have additional interest, and we'll talk about that in more detail. But let's go to the next slide if you can, Sergeant Martinson. All right, this is a great quote from Roy Bennett. He says, "We need to listen with curiosity, speak with honesty, act with integrity. The greatest problem with communication is we don't listen to understand. We listen to reply. And when we listen with curiosity, we don't listen with the intent to reply. We listen for what's behind the words." And I believe there are many times in my life, I listen sometimes for the reply, and sometimes I can jump ahead. So it's just always a great reminder to be in the moment with what someone is saying and trying to listen for what's taking place behind those words. And thought I would get us started off with that quote. And Sergeant Martinson, if you could go to the next slide, that would be great, please. Okay, some of the, I put these in Roman numerals for effective communication and summarized a lot of what's out there on the internet. I put helpguide.org at the bottom if you want information on one of the websites to go to. But it's just understanding that communication is not just an exchange of information, but it's about us understanding each other's emotions and our intentions behind the information. One of the things I've always heard for many, many years is we need to repeat back what we're hearing. It's just a way of understanding that we're getting what you're saying. And by me saying what I hear you saying is, it's a chance for them to correct it and or say, hey, you're spot on with that. So we just need to slow down, and it forces us to listen in that regard. And I understand, having deployed myself twice, coming home, it is a transition. It's a time of some frustration as we get back into integration, back with our family, back in society. Things are different. Sometimes there's a bit of restlessness that can take place, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we progress in this and how we can learn to listen with understanding and hear what people are saying to us. Number two, it's not instinctive. You would think it is, but the reality is relationships, we just speak different languages. My wife and I joke, she speaks pink and I speak blue, and we need some type of translator or a protocol converter to help us understand what we're saying to one another. And here's another thing I had to learn, and this is just in full transparency because my wife and I, we talk about this and we use this in ways to help others. When she uses text, she expects you to respond immediately. She thinks that's a conversation taking place as if we're face to face with each other in the same room. And I try to help her understand, when you're communicating with our children, wherever they are in the United States, it's not going to be that they're going to respond immediately. So you need to understand that. A lot of times text doesn't really convey what we're saying. And many times text and email can convey anger when it's really not anger at all. So we need to remove any ambiguity taking place. I'm just a big fan of talking. Pick up the phone. If it's too much to text or email, pick up the phone and just spend time talking to one another so that we can effectively communicate. So if you've got the whole text and email down pat, God love you for that. You've cornered the market. You need to write a book. So I just want to give you that as a heads up. It really removes ambiguity so that we can speak voice to voice. The other part of this is effective communication. It's going to improve our relationships. It's going to build trust and it's going to build respect. Others want to be heard and they want to be understood. So these are just some initial tips that we can think about when we're speaking with one another in our relationships, and especially with our children, because I can tell you, sometimes my kids are the first to say, Dad, you sound distracted. I need your attention. I'm guilty of this as well. And a lot of times I have to tell them, I need your full attention for about what we're about to talk about. Just vocalize that and help them understand we need to connect on the same page and speak the same language. So I really wanted to start out with that quote and these first three Roman numerals just to give us some tips as we move forward. Sergeant Martinson, you can go to the next slide, please. Now let's kind of talk about some of the obstacles. Just a few slides here to talk about some obstacles that prevent us from communicating properly. I think a big one is being stressed, and maybe we let our emotions get in the way. So I kind of put a cause and a cure here. When we're stressed, emotionally overwhelmed, we're more likely to misread other people. We're not going to understand what they're saying. We're not going to pick up on their signals, and we might get into what they say knee-jerk responses. Our cure is to avoid these misunderstandings, and we learn how to calm down. There are times I need to walk out of a room if I feel heated. There are times I need to step away from my laptop or my text and say, now's not the time to send this message. Now's not the time to communicate this message if I just feel overwhelmed or emotional at the moment, because it's not going to really be what I want to say. It's going to be more or less what I don't need to say because I'm letting anger get in the way. So if we feel that we're in that situation, call that time out. As our last great speaker said, let's call that time out. Let's take another shot at this because we have that privilege, and let's not ruin it. So call the time out, step away from each other, take a deep breath, and then reconvene at a moment that's going to be most convenient. Now, if you're the type that you got to get to the end of this problem immediately and you're going to press, it's not going to work. We have to exercise some patience here. So recognize our moments of stress and we're out of control and we're emotional, and let's table some of the difficult discussions. Next slide, please, Sergeant Martinson. Here's another obstacle. inconsistent, well, actually, did you go down one too far on that slide? Here we go. No, go back to, I think it's lack of focus. There you go. Thank you. A lot of times we're just not focused at the moment. Maybe we're multitasking, we're checking our phone. One of the rules I have with the kids, and I still call them kids, they're growing up, but they're still my kids and I love them to death. When we go to dinner, the phones either stay in the car or they stay in your pocket. They're not at the table. And I just would encourage you to do the same so that we can get back to what's most important, eye contact and talking to each other face to face and learning to understand what we're saying. Let's get rid of our distractions. And I would just challenge you the next time you're out to dinner, watch people at the table. You can have 4 people at the table and they're all on their phones. They're multitasking. They're trying to have a conversation. Maybe the conversation's not that in depth. Maybe it's just trivial. I get that. I understand that. But if you want to feel respected and connect, and there's an aspect I want to feel loved in the relationship, remove those distractions and give them your full attention. So I would just encourage you to avoid all the distractions you can and stay focused. Now, here's a tip for any of our adults. And I don't know if we have any young adults listening that are part of the family as well. There is a time to approach your parents to ask for something. Learn what that time is. There is a time to go to your significant other or your spouse and to ask or to make a request and communicate. We need to understand that time. I don't know what that looks like in your relationship, but there is a moment in the day where there is a break where people are very, very open to communicate. And it's important to learn and understand when that time is. Ellen, I would encourage you to jump on it. A lot of times you can ask for the moon and you will get it. So it's an important thing to understand in our relationships with one another. So let's stay focused. Next slide, please, Sergeant Martinson. Okay, body language. That's a huge part of nonverbal communication when we're speaking to people. They're leaning forward, they're engaged. Do they have their arms crossed? Don't always take offense to that. There's a lot of people that feel vulnerable. And by the crossing of their arms, it's a form of protection. Doesn't mean they're not listening. It can be a form of comfort. But understand that our body language can convey if we're listening or not listening. So if a body is turned to the left or to the right and you sense somebody is in a hurry to get out of the conversation, maybe that's not the time to talk in detail. Let them go about their business. But our body language can say a lot. Now, I will say the difference between male and female, and this is normal. Generally, females, when they're sitting down, they're face to face and they talk in more of an intimate setting. Men are very good at shoulder to shoulder, sometimes walking alongside a man when you're talking and trying to communicate with them. That is a good way and a good time to do it. Just understand how we're built, how we're wired, but understand our nonverbal communication can sometimes send a signal if we're not really paying attention or listening. So use body language, that is eye contact, face to face, and just you're present with someone. And always go back to that quote, listen, because at the end of the day, folks want to be heard and they want to be understood. We may not have to agree, but they want to be understood and they want to be heard. So it's just a way of connecting with them in that regard. So body language helps as well. All right, we're moving through well here. So let's go to the next slide, if you will, Sergeant Martinson. All right, negative body language. If you disagree with or dislikes what is being said, you might use a negative body language and someone is going to pick up on that. Now, again, don't always confuse crossing your arms, but sometimes it can be. So if we're talking with our spouse or talking with our significant other or our children, and we see all of a sudden a folding or the avoiding of eye contact, or maybe the hemming and hawing or the tapping of feet, I think that's pretty obvious. I think it's pretty obvious what's taking place. So I'm not going to condemn somebody if they don't disagree with the conversation at the moment, But I go back to saying, let's set our ground rules. Let's try to understand each other. We may not like what we hear, because you know what? If I don't like what I hear, sometimes that's an area of my life I need to grow in. So that's not the time for me to cross my arms and tap my feet and back away. Be open to what's being said in that regard. But again, we don't always have to agree with everything being said. But when we're going to communicate effectively with one another, let's not try to put each other on the defensive and sending signals that could be negative. Let's try to use something positive to get along with each other. Communication's not easy, and I'm going to tell you these 8 slides are not going to be the answer. I would encourage you that this is a practiced art that requires patience, that we just need to be fully engaged in for it to be effective, and especially in the family. We're modeling that for our children. They're going to understand this is how mom and dad communicate. Next thing you know, that's how they're going to communicate with others. So it's important to really get our communication down pat at home. If you have a hard time communicating, we have incredible counselors available in the state. We have chaplains across the state as well. There is a lot of help out there to understand our communication techniques and how we can be better communicators in our relationships. All right, Sergeant Martinson, next slide. And I think that might be our final slide. Here are a couple books to look at. Now, in full transparency, I have not read Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life, and I have not read yet Games People Play. But I certainly know that if we had more time to explore this regard, some of you might even have questions out there saying, well, you know, Chaplain, I communicate with people, but I'm communicating with people who like to manipulate. That is a discussion for another day, and we don't have time to get into that. How do we work with those who try to manipulate us in maybe the workforce or our civilian job in that regard? So these are some books that maybe can look at strategic ways to work with that. The last one I have read many times, and I've led classes on it, and this is a gentleman, Emerson Eggridge, and it's called Love and Respect. And it's helping us in a relationship, understanding that at the end of the day, the man desires respect. And at the end of the day, the woman desires love. And in that relationship, it helps us understand to provide our spouse what they desire most. And it's a really good book. We ran those courses downrange for our soldiers, and it's saved quite a few marriages. So I highly recommend Love and Respect as a good resource for you as well. Learning how to communicate and work together in a relationship. So that's really in a nutshell. I wish we had more time, but we will have more time come March 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys individually and fellow warriors and soldiers, and spending time with you that entire weekend. Just want to thank you for letting me be with you today, although the time was brief. Sergeant Martinson, thank you so much for helping me with the slides and getting that taken care of from my place. And folks, welcome home. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Chaplain. We will move on, and I will go back in the slides, and we will have Ashley from IBHS now.
Good morning, everyone. So glad to be here. My name, as it was said, is Ashley Higgins, and I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor and a licensed clinical addiction specialist with a program that you may or may not be familiar with called IBHS. So we'll get into a little bit about what IBHS is at the end. But what I'm really here to talk to you guys about today are just some warning signs of mental health risks. So how could you know, how would you know if someone that you cared about or yourself was showing signs that may say that they need to seek help? Next slide, please. So first thing, let's get to know the problem. Want to go through some statistics with you guys. If we look at it, about 21% of US adults experienced mental illness in 2020. So that is 52.9 million adults. If we look at those who had serious mental illness, we're looking at 1 in 20 adults. If we look at children, right? So 6 through 17, so it's kind of our kids, adolescents, 16.5% in 2018, which is 7.7 million. If we look at co-occurring disorders, and so what that means is I'm struggling with substance use, but I'm also struggling with mental health, 6.7%, which is 17 million people in 2020. And then suicide, guys. So the top 9 leading cause of death for people 10 to 64. And if we break that down a little bit further, right? Second leading cause of death for people 10 to 14 and 25 to 34. That is 1 death every 11 minutes. It's kind of crazy, right? To put it into that perspective. And I show you these statistics, one, just to understand like why this is so important that we're looking out for some of these signs. If you're struggling with any of the things I'm about to mention, you're not alone. Look at these numbers. There are a lot of people out there that are also struggling. And also I want you guys to think about the goal here is to prevent the crisis, right? So by looking out for these warning signs, catching them early on, getting connected to care, the goal is that we can move away from that bottom statistic. So really this is about recognizing that you're not alone if you're struggling. If your child is struggling, they are not alone. And prevention is key in trying to mitigate some of the life-altering decisions that could come at the end of this. Next slide, please. So let's look at some key warning signs. So obviously I've got the 5 up here already, but I'm going to go through each one of these for you guys and just kind of talk to you a little bit about what I have seen. So some anecdotal things that might fit these categories. So first thing, change in personality. If you have a loved one that was really bubbly, outgoing, they were always the life of the party, if you will, or kind of the light of the room, and then all of a sudden this person is now not wanting to be around other people, or their mood has completely shifted, right? This could be a warning sign. Just anything where someone is not acting like themselves. Maybe and this can go the opposite way, right? Maybe they were more reserved and now all of a sudden this person is just like seemingly so outgoing and not scared of risk anymore like they used to be. So just any kind of large change, less social, more social, becoming avoidant, maybe fatigued, right? And that'll kind of show up, I think, a little bit later in some of these other ones. So let's look at number 2, uncharacteristic anxiety, anger, or moodiness. Now, I think uncharacteristic is key. I think, we all can fall on some kind of spectrum of anxiety, right? But what we're talking about here is really just something that's out of the norm. So maybe someone who used to have no problem going into Walmart is having anxiety attacks when they're there, or is just completely avoidant of going, right? Because they don't even want to experience the anxiety that might come with that. Another common one would be like anxiety around social situations when that used to never bother someone. Anxiety around driving is another one that I've seen. So just this sudden shift. And it doesn't have to be so specific, right? It can just be increased anxiety about life in general, right? All of those what ifs, and the person seems to be getting really stuck in those. Anger, this is definitely something that I see a lot of in my work. So it could look like, now this person is yelling, screaming, slamming doors, but it can also look like just irritability, right? Like I'm having a hard time managing my temper with the kids. That's a super common one, that short temper. Moodiness. Here, just thinking about, again, that can be that irritability, that can be that shift into anxiety. But I also want you to think about like extreme highs or extreme lows. So maybe you notice that for a couple weeks, this person is just like very on top of the world. And then for a couple weeks, they're very down. And that seems to be a regular pattern that you're starting to notice. That could be a sign that there's something more going on there. Social withdrawal and isolation. So this is a big one, particularly when we think about like depressive symptoms, or I mean, we kind of mentioned it with anxiety, right? Maybe I'm so anxious to be in a situation that I just completely withdraw from it, too. So anxious to be around other people that I completely withdraw from it. Children, adolescents, right? I've heard of like withdrawing into their room. They used to hang out with the family, but now like they're spending just copious amounts of time withdrawn and isolated. Maybe they used to be really heavily involved in sports and they've kind of cut off all of that. And now they just really want to stay to themselves. Just any kind of closing off socially. And you might hear things like, oh, I'm just too tired to be around people. Maybe it's specific. So if we get into kind of like some of our thinking trauma symptoms, right? It's certain people that we're withdrawing from. It's maybe certain places, certain things that might be reminders of. But what happens is, and you know, avoidance in itself is not bad, but what I want you to look out for is this starting to narrow or restrict what life used to look like for yourself or for this loved one? Lack of self-care and risky behavior. So let's start with what is lack of self-care. So here is where we're really thinking about, okay, eating habits. Has this person started eating excessively, right? We're using the food to kind of help cope with difficult emotions, or is it becoming restricted, right? So now I'm not eating very much. This can be a really telltale sign of mental health difficulties, changes in appetite and changes in sleep. So is this person really like they're not sleeping at all anymore? Living off 2-3 hours of sleep, like that can be, especially on a repeated basis, right? We all have nights where we struggle to sleep, but we're really looking at, is this becoming a pattern? Oversleeping. Oftentimes I hear, you know, well, it's just easier, and rather than facing the day, it would be easier just to stay asleep and stay in my bed. Oftentimes mental health difficulties come with a lot of fatigue, and we can really buy into our mind telling us like we just need to stay and rest. So we tend to sleep more. So these are the appetite and the sleep. Maybe this is someone who used to love going to the gym, that they were avid about working out, and now that's completely changed. There's no desire to do those things that they used to do to take care of themselves. For you moms out there, this can also look like giving to everyone and never taking time for yourselves, right? I think oftentimes that is considered in our society very acceptable, right? Just to give, but not having time to actually check in with ourselves and make sure that we're doing okay. So these are all things that, you know, could kind of fall in the self-care. Let me also say hygiene can be a big one, especially when we're talking about, I think, our younger folks. So maybe like not showering, not brushing their teeth. I mean, some of these things, maybe like if they're super, super young, we're still trying to get them in a routine to do these things. But as they get older, right, like if this is a change in behavior, they used to do this all the time and now they're not really doing it all. Maybe they used to love getting dressed up, and now this person is constantly just kind of hanging out in sweats. And these are just little clues that you can tap into to say like, hey, okay, something's happening here. Risky behavior is also on number 4. So what we mean by that, and I'm sure you guys can kind of guess, right? Like substance use is a huge one. Using substances, and maybe this person, maybe it's alcohol, right? And this person or you were drinking beforehand, but the drinking is escalating. Again, changes in behavior. It is very common to use alcohol as avoidance strategy. And you know what? It can be a very effective avoidance strategy in the short term. But what it can also do is create or exacerbate the depression or whatever other mental health issue might be there. So substance use. Another big one I see is speeding. So, and this can be like an intentional, like I'm speeding, I'm kind of swerving on the road. especially folks who maybe are starting to struggle with number 5. I can hear them talking about, like, I veered off just to see because I was feeling really hopeless, right? Spending too much can be risky behavior. Gambling, anything that's gonna giving you that dopamine hit, and dopamine is that feel good neurotransmitter that sometimes we want, but in excess and in risky ways is typically a sign that something more is going on. Okay. So the last one, a sense of hopelessness or feeling overwhelmed, right? And this is something that someone might be struggling with, but they're not going to tell you directly. Okay. So I kind of want to think that there's kind of 2 clues that we have here. We have like kind of some direct clues where someone is telling us pretty directly, and then we have some indirect. So if we're thinking about like direct, this is really hearing things like, I've decided to kill myself. I wish I were dead. I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to end it all. If such and such doesn't happen, then I'm just going to kill myself. And guys, these might come out as jokes, right? This might be said with a tone where I'm just trying to lighten the mood. But realistically, if you're hearing any of these, I mean, this is definitely a stop but wait, what's really going on here? Some indirect ways that you might hear this, so to be on the lookout, like, I'm just tired of living and I just really don't want to go on anymore. I hear often, my family would just be better off without me. Who cares if I weren't here? I just want out. Um, Pretty soon you won't have to worry about me. So notice, like, there's not necessarily very specific, like, I'm going to do this, but it is definitely implied in there. So these are things that if you're hearing, I definitely encourage you to stop and start a conversation. And if that feels too overwhelming, then that's kind of what IBHS is here for. So let's move to the next slide and talk a little bit about like what IBHS's role is if you guys were to actually notice some of these things. So IBHS stands for Integrative Behavioral Health System. We are a voluntary program, which means that we're not going to force you to work with us. We are confidential, which means that everything that is shared with IBHS stays with IBHS. Now, there are some caveats, right? Like the fine print in all of life. So things to consider, right? If you guys call in and tell me that you're thinking about killing yourself and we can't come up with a plan to keep you safe, and I'm really convinced that this is about to happen, I'm going to do what I have to do to keep you safe. And that might mean breaking your confidentiality, right? If you tell me that you're going to kill somebody else and I am convinced that this is actually going to happen, right? I'm going to keep the other person safe. If the behavioral health issues have gotten to a point where it is just impossible for you to continue on with your military duties, I may have to break your confidentiality. But if we're talking about things like what the chaplain was talking about with like improving communication skills or kind of doing the preventative work around anxiety or depression, or even I see a lot of folks for trauma, these things tend to stay confidential. The key here too is that this is a free service, guys. I love being able to say that because if you go out into the community and you're looking for mental health services, they can be expensive. And so here you have like a free option. And guys, this is not just for the service members. This is for family members too. So if your significant other is struggling, if your child is struggling, I would really encourage you to reach out. So what you've got there in yellow, our 855 number, right? This is the main way that you would get connected with IBHS. That is a 24/7 number, which means you can call it any day, anytime, and there is going to be someone who picks up the phone. When they pick up the phone, they're going to take a message, and that message is routed directly to whatever therapist is on call. And then you can pretty much expect once that message is left within 10 to 15 minutes max. Usually I'm calling back within like 3 or 4. So keep your phone by you, right? But you would have a therapist calling you back. So there's 6 of us, 6 therapists that work throughout the state. of North Carolina, and we specifically just service the North Carolina National Guard. So 24, the things that we do, right? This 24/7 crisis intervention. If you are struggling with any of those things that I listed on the page before, you can call 24/7, and we can help, one, kind of get through the moment, whether that is through like some just supportive talking or some coping skills that might be really relevant to the here and now. We also do assessment and referral. So, what that means is that if you're wanting, after we get you through whatever's going on in that moment, if you're wanting to get connected to counseling, right, we will do an assessment. We will kind of figure out, okay, what is going to be most appropriate. And then from there can help get you connected, whether that's getting connected to one of our internal providers. Some people prefer going out into the community, and we can kind of help them figure out what TRICARE providers are in their area. There's also a lot of other free resources that people just don't know about that we can help kind of illuminate and show, like, okay, these are your options. And again, guys, this is not just for the service member, this is family members too. If you have children, we as providers on the internal side don't necessarily see children, but what we can do is find out what's going on with the child, figure out, okay, this is probably the kind of provider that's going to be most helpful. We will go and do the searching. We will narrow it down to people that specialize in that age and that issue, right? So we're doing that legwork for you, if needed. We also do behavioral health consultation and treatment. So we've kind of talked about this a little bit. What I would say is if you were listening to that last slide and your ears were kind of perking up because it reminded you of someone, but you don't really know what to do next, and you wanted to just give us a call and you can call and just have a conversation with us about, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Do you think it's an issue? How might you suggest approach it? I've even scripted out with a kid how to have this conversation with a friend that he had at school because he didn't know, and this is a college age kid, but he didn't know how to approach the fact that he was seeing these warning signs and he wanted to say something, but he didn't know how. So we can help you kind of even just script out, like, okay, what would be an effective way to approach this? We offer treatment internally. So we do short-term 12 to 16 session treatment for folks. And this is, again, available to family, service member. We are doing telehealth currently. If you are lucky enough to be near one of the armories that we work in, so we have someone in Charlotte, Asheville, Wilmington, High Point, and at Joint Force Headquarters. And I forget, there's someone else. But if you happen to be near and driving distance to an armory, we can do in person at the armory. Otherwise, we're doing telehealth with folks that maybe aren't able to drive to us. But there's also one other piece to what we do that I haven't talked about yet that I think is also very important. Not everyone who is struggling because of mental health. Like sometimes we're struggling because we don't know how to pay our mortgage this month, or sometimes we're struggling because we don't have enough food to put on the table. Maybe we're just feeling stuck because we're in a job and we just don't really know what other options are out there for moving forward. So we offer free case management. We have 3 women who are fantastic. They've been doing this for 10 plus years, just connecting service members to different referral sources that might be helpful. Getting them connected to emergency monies if they qualify. One of the girls was able to get a ramp built in the front of someone's house because they have a disabled child, right? So these are the kind of connections that they're trying to help you make to just whatever can make life easier. So I feel like I've went on and on. Obviously, I'm very excited about this service, and I really hope that you guys put this number in your phone. Save it in a way that makes sense for you. Sometimes IBHS, we tend to forget what that is after a couple months, but even if you're not doing this for you, even if you're sitting there and you're like, you know what, my mental health is solid, I will never need this service. You never know when a buddy is going to message you on Facebook one night and say, I'm thinking about ending my life. And when that happens, and that has happened, this is a number that you can connect them to. And then we can we can be there to either help them get through that moment or get them the care that they need. So that's all I've got for you guys. You will probably hear from us again at some other point. Again, my name is Ashley. I am so thankful for your time and attention, and welcome back. And just give us a call if you even think you might need it. We are here to help. That's all I got.
Thank you, Ashley.
Absolutely.
Great information. All right. We are going to move back to Sandy Bullock. She is going to give the finance brief. Sandy, do you have slides that you want to share, or?
I'm not sure how to share them. I was trying to chat with you and to see if you had my slides. I know that Sergeant Hill had some there before, so I didn't know if you had those. I'm not sure. I have some that I can share, but I don't know how to. I don't know how to bring them up.
Sure. You can share your screen.
Okay, hang on just a second. Let me pull them up here, and I'll get that, and then I can do that.
Yep. And you should be able to hit share and then share. Like if they're in PowerPoint, you should be able to hit share PowerPoint.
Yeah, let me get into the one that is for. Pull this up. Let's see, where is my. Okay, hang on here. I'm trying to find it. I've got. Where's my PowerPoint? Well, I can do the 7 most common mistakes, and that kind of goes over some stuff too. And that's what I have available right now.
Okay.
And that kind of goes over that. So let me get in here. Where do I push on the share?
Yes.
Okay, share screen.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then I put entire screen. I'm not sure if that does it. I've got my PowerPoint up.
Starting up. Yep. There we see it.
Okay, you guys got it?
Yes.
For the 7 most common mistakes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me go over here. Okay, so there's a lot of things that people do when they're trying to plan for retirement and just planning in general. And obviously, the sooner that you do this in your life, the better handle you could possibly have on it. All right. But just because you may or may not have the opportunity or you didn't know about it or anything like that, I don't want it to give the impression that if you're over the age of 40, all is lost, because that's certainly not the case either. Okay. So I'm going to go over 7 most common mistakes for people that they make when they are trying to plan for their future. Okay. And the first mistake is waiting to plan for your financial security. All right. So what benefits do you enjoy today? You know, some things that people have are they have 401k plans that they have through their job. In the military, that is your TSP. Okay. If you are a mil tech, then you have 2 TSPs, or possibly 2 TSPs. But having different benefits that you have depending on the type of job that you have, some of those benefits could be health benefits as well that you're given, or matching contributions in a 401k. Those types of things is understanding what your benefits are. Okay, are they enough to meet your family's needs? So what they're talking about here is just because well, you want to make sure that you have enough resources now to cover everything, but that is going to change later in life. So if you wait to plan for those financial security later, you might have missed the ball. So, and you might not be able to accurately gauge what is needed later down the line. So working with a financial coach can kind of help you get a better idea of what you'll actually need for retirement or when you're reaching retirement. Which will you have to replace if you separate or retire? So people don't understand this, or they don't necessarily think about it. But when you leave your job, most companies, you do not take your life insurance with you. Most companies, you don't take a health insurance plan with you. And obviously, if you've left the job, then you're no longer contributing to any kind of retirement program. So understanding what you get to keep and what you have to give up when you stop working is definitely a major thing to consider when you're planning for retirement and just planning in general. And then what other financial resources do you have? As a financial planner and a financial coach, a lot of the things that I work with people on is creating multiple streams of income for later down the line. Because the idea is that you want to have multiple streams, and hopefully most of those are going to be guaranteed streams of income from different sources. So if one source becomes compromised for some reason, you haven't, put all your eggs in one basket. All right. So providing for your family's income needs in the event of your death or disability. That is your life insurance, most likely. It also is other things, though. It's estate planning. That's, part of it. It could be. It could also be advanced planning, which involves things like your Social Security planning and just different things like that. Just trying to make sure that you have everything taken care of while you're living. So, in the event that you do pass away, you haven't left a big mess for everybody to try and figure it out when you've passed. Ease the financial transition to post-military career or retirement. There's a lot of stuff that we have as military spouses and families that sometimes could be taken for granted. And one of the biggest one is the health insurance. When you are transitioning from regular military, whether it's active duty or you're on the Miltech side, or even just as a reservist or National Guard, you're given certain benefits for health insurance once you've retired that isn't offered to the general public. So, but to do the transition to get to that point can definitely be challenging, and you want to make sure you're working with the proper people and getting everything set up in the right way for yourself. Possibly funding your child's college or other education expenses. Planning early for that type of thing. There are a lot of programs out there right now that are offered for children that are in high school that can advance their college career while they're in high school. My son is involved, two of my children are involved in those right now. However, that doesn't mean that all of their college expenses are covered. And so deciding in your family for your family's wants and wishes to find out if you are wanting to provide for those education expenses or, help with them. Either way, having a plan for that is definitely a good way to plan for your financial security. Fund the retirement that you envision. A lot of us, when we think of retirement, we just think of stop working. And then we also think of everything that we have to pay for today. And then sometimes those two visions don't really meet because you can't envision not working and not making money because you have bills and debts and just lifestyle expenses that need to be made. So, and then we start compromising, well, maybe I don't really need this so that I can, stop working or whatever. The idea here is to plan for whatever you want for retirement, and then we will try and make a plan to make that happen. And that's going to take discipline and planning on your part as well as mine to help you achieve that. All right. Ensure the transfer of assets to your survivors after you've gone. That is estate planning, and that is it's a whole different discussion. But a will is not the only document that you may want to have in your repertoire, so that you make sure that your stuff is going to who you want. Just because you have a will is a death document, and it is by all means not the end all be all. A will pretty much ensures that the courts and a lawyer are going to have to be involved, which usually means that your stuff has to go through probate. Okay, so there are ways and vehicles that you can use to ensure that your stuff doesn't necessarily go through probate. And a financial advisor and a planner can help you determine if your situation warrants using, either a trust or something like that that can help you in your situation. The second mistake that people make is not knowing how much you need for retirement. I just want to start out here by saying you can literally borrow money for almost everything, but you cannot borrow money for retirement. So you having an idea of what you actually need in retirement and a plan to get to there is very, very important. It's very critical. Doesn't mean you wouldn't achieve your goal. It just means it's probably going to be a lot harder. So retirement isn't what it used to be. Okay. And what I mean by that is people are living longer. The average life expectancy for a male today is about 84, 85 years old, and a female is about 86, 87. Okay. So people are living longer. Social Security, when it was originally set up, was not set up to become your retirement plan. It was set up as a supplement to retirement. And it was also set up with the understanding at the time that people were only living till about 70, 73 years old. Well, those ages have now gone quite a bit longer. And the funds that people are receiving in Social Security are getting larger and larger. Okay, at least today they are. Now we're all worried about, is Social Security even going to be available for me when I reach Social Security age? And we hear all these, thoughts and talk about how Social Security is going to go bankrupt, or it'll close down, or it's going to outfund itself and stuff like that. The government's not going to let that happen. Okay, they're going to do other things, and some of those things they can do is extend the uh, age for retirement. So it used to be 65, and then they bumped it up to 66 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, whatever it is, and then 67. So one way that they can extend that to ensure that we don't run out of money for Social Security is to increase the age of retirement. So that's something they can do. They can also increase or whatever the percentages that are going out to Social Security. Right now it's 6.2% is being taken out of our pay. So they could increase that. So there's a lot of different ways that it can be done. I imagine that they're probably going to figure out something. There'll probably be some form of Social Security available. It might not be as much as what people are receiving today, but we don't anticipate it not being there. Okay. However, with that being said, as well, as a financial planner and a coach, we don't, me personally, I don't base someone who's fairly young their financial plan, including Social Security. I figure if it's there, wonderful, and it's gravy. If you're closer to Social Security age, like within the next 10 years or so, then it is something that we use and plan for your financial plan. So everybody's a little bit different here. The other thing to keep in mind is that people's retirement lifestyles, they're way more active. When people retired 30, 40, 50 years ago, they stayed at home. They didn't do a whole lot of traveling. They petered around the house. That was retirement for them. Nowadays, people in retirement, they're traveling, they're active, they're doing stuff, they're going places. So, and, consequently, that means the age of people going in, and living longer is also increasing, like we mentioned before. And so obviously, if you are living longer and you're more active and not just staying at home, you're going to need more income for those events and for those actions. So those are things that we have to consider. All right. At what age do you intend to ultimately retire? One of the things that I often work with my clients on doing is trying to figure out a realistic age that you would want to have the option to stop working. You might choose to continue working, but to have the option to stop working is, that ultimate retirement. Okay. And how many years should your money last? That also kind of ties in with how much guaranteed sources of income do you have? Remember, I mentioned those multiple streams of income. We want to make sure we have the income coming in order to retire. How much do you have in your savings and in your investments? Those should be your supplements, right? Not the be all end all to retirement. Okay. Are you investing appropriately? Obviously, if you are, well, this isn't necessarily obvious because I do have clients that are in their 70s and they're fairly aggressive in their investments. Usually those people have a much better idea and they've been investing for quite some time. But, investing appropriately, what that really is referring to is if someone is in their 80s, you're not going to put them in a very aggressive fund, because if they lose those dollars, or if the value for those dollars have gone down, they're probably not going to be able to be around long enough to recuperate and get those dollars back. So making sure that you're appropriately invested is one of the things that we work on. And then what other assets do you own? Those are, do you have rental properties? Do you, one of those rental properties, maybe you made it into an Airbnb. Do you have an RV and so you travel around in it a lot? They're talking also here assets as far as like investment assets. Do you have regular investment accounts, IRAs, annuities? What other things do you have? All those are taken into consideration. And what are your spouse's or your partner's retirement needs and expected contributions? Up until now, we were just talking about one person, but remember, if you're married and your spouse has had a career or something along those lines, having another source of another person and their sources of income to consider is also something that is put into your financial plan. The third mistake that people use or do is failing to participate in the TSP. Now, in the military, that's the TSP or government program. So the TSP defaulted right now, if you're in the blended retirement, it is defaulted to 5%. And as far as I understand, every year you would have to go back in. If you change it, they will default back to 5% in January, and you'd have to go back in and change it back to whatever you wanted it to be if it was less than 5%. Okay. Now, these are 2022's numbers. Okay. I believe. So I think it might be 20,500, I believe. I believe this is correct. Catch-up contributions are 6,500. And then hazardous duty pay is 61,000. Okay, so participating in your TSP is definitely one way to build your retirement. In the National Guard, a lot of people think that, well, I only have a drill check and it's only $30 or $40 going in. And the reality is that $30, $40 going in every month, if it's being matched, is actually, $80 or more dollars, right? And then on top of that, you've got compound interest and time. And all of those things will act for you for later down the line. And just being able to, and speaking with a coach, a financial coach or planner on how to manipulate those dollars so that we can make them or potentially make them greater for you later down the line. That's where it all kind of begins. And that's where that planning starts. So participating in your TSP program is definitely highly encouraged, especially if you're on the blended retirement system, because those dollars are matched. And if you are not at least putting in what the matching contribution is, you're kind of leaving money on the table. If you are not on the blended and you're on the choice system or the old retirement system, I would still encourage you to do thrift savings, because there's dollars there that you can't. There's a limit in the TSP. There's a limit in an IRA. And if you're able to max out both, and you're only doing one, then you're limiting what you can put away for retirement. So definitely contributing to your TSP is definitely encouraged. This is just kind of an idea of how to show you what those dollars can look like. Okay, so one bottle of water, let's just say it's $1.50 today. That would be approximately, and you bought one every single day. And it doesn't have to be a bottle of water, just something of $1.50, right? That's $45 a month. In 20 years, that's about almost 21,000. In 30, it's almost 45. And in 40 years, you're looking at almost $90,000 because of $1.50 a day. You can go over here and, a specialty coffee. That sounds kind of cheap to me, but $3.50. You can see how your dollars can grow here. So I know many of us will go out to dinner. We'll go out to lunch or something like that. And $7 nowadays is pretty inexpensive for that, a cheap meal. But if you do this every single day, that's over $200 a month. And by saving and investing $200 a month in 40 years, assuming you're in your 20s right now, when you hit that Social Security retirement age, that's over $400,000 that could have been put away. And there's other ways to make this. This is just, an average 6% annual return. So there's a lot of ways to make that grow. And keep in mind, this is just a, projected amount. So it could be higher, it could be lower. But the point we're trying to make here is to show you how much a small amount of money each day can really add up over time. The fourth mistake that people often make is not having an insurance strategy. Okay. And by that, we mean you want to make sure that you have your protection pieces in place. Okay, right now the SGLI just got increased to 500,000, so this slide is off. Okay, it used to be 400,000, but it's now 500, and I believe it's about $30 or $31 a month. So that's probably the least expensive insurance you'll ever be able to get. Okay, but also keep in mind it's only good for while you are in the military. Once you've left the military, that is no longer available to you. You have the option of VGLI, which, you know, given personal circumstances, might be your best option. But keep in mind, it is an increasing term, which means every 5 years it increases. And by that increase, I mean it almost doubles every 5 years. Okay. Plus, if you do not renew it, there is no going back. So if you haven't renewed it, then it's not like if you made the mistake of not renewing it, oh shoot, I'm 2 months past due, you know, go back and try and get it. It's gone. All right. So what this is showing you here on the slide is if you had 400,000 in life insurance and you passed away, that 400,000 could get eaten up very, very quickly. You got a $250,000 mortgage, some college debt paid off, pay off the car, pay off some credit card debts. You only have about 80 grand left. And if your spouse hasn't worked or they were replacing your income in the family, that might be 1 year's worth of income. That's not going to be very long for that spouse to be able to use those dollars. So it can be it can end up being a very high stressor. There's no need to do that. This is the VGLI. Okay, so for 400,000, you can see how it very, very quickly, like, more than doubles here. Okay, and these are, I don't know if these are up to date numbers, but if you're doing the 400,000 right now, that's about right. I think it's actually $88 now and not 64. But you can see it goes up in 5 year increments. Okay, they're just showing you the 40 to 44. All right, but I'm telling you, it can be very pricey. Sometimes that is your only option, though. So if it is, then you definitely want to take it. However, you know, talking with somebody, there's a lot of things that we can do and to help you with your protection pieces if that's something that you need help with. The fifth mistake that a lot of people make is failing to plan for goals other than retirement. You know, we get so focused on retirement that we forget about there's other things that we got to plan for. So a lot of times, you know, purchasing a home might be the thing that we're looking at. All right, and that could be a lot of times people, they get you know, they've raised their family, they've lived in a house, maybe they've changed houses a couple of times. Now they're in retirement and they realize, holy cow, I don't need this huge house. And so then they try and downsize and they got to buy a house, you know, and maybe the market's not favorable, so they don't get as much for the house that they had, or whatever the case might be. The point is that, you know, purchasing a home could be something that you'd be planning for, funding a college education for your children, paying for a wedding, taking family vacations, or starting your own business, dealing with unexpected events. Those are like life events. And so all of those types of things we also want to keep in mind, because it's not just retirement planning that we're putting money aside for or planning towards. So you want to keep that in mind. The other thing that people make a mistake on, the number 6 one, is worrying about things that you can't control. So you can't control if you have an unexpected bill that comes up, or uh, the market itself, the up and downs in the market, or maybe hazards in your job, whether, you know, maybe that's keeping your job, or maybe you got laid off. Those types of things are stuff that you can't control. What you can control, though, is having an emergency fund that can help offset and prepare for these things that we cannot control. Investing consistently over a long-term time, that is what we call dollar cost averaging. That right there is your best tool against that. Okay, even when the market is doing its pogo stick jumping around like it is right now. Okay, consistently investing in the market is going to be your best long-term strategy. Okay, providing for your family's financial security, and that can be a lot of different things, everything from your investments, your savings, and your life insurance to, you know, just having a written plan put in place. All those things are things that we can control, and then when we have those controls in place, they will definitely help guide you and make sure that you have some of you guys. But DIC, which is your dependent indemnity compensation, for active duty, that's what it would be. For reserve and National Guard, it's much different. Okay. Family SGLI, that is still the same for reserve and National Guard. It's 100,000 and 10,000 for each child. Death gratuity, that is paid out if you were on active duty and passed away while serving. So that is paid out. So those are things that, you'd need to know. If you're retired, you have your SBP. You want to and that helps make up for your loss of income. It's not a whole lot, but it definitely can help in, some of that. There are other tools that we can use, though, to help make up the other 45% that is not being covered from your income. And so talking with an advanced or a financial advisor to help you with that can be helpful for you. Pays eligible survivor monthly income. So that's what SBP is able to do. And you do have to pay for that, though. So it comes out of your retirement check. Now, as a National Guard or reservist, if your check is over $1,300 a month, you will pay the 6.5%. That's the last numbers I'm aware of. Okay. If your retirement check is less than $1,300 a month, then there is a prorated amount or something like that. I can get you more information on that if that's something that you wanted to know about. And once you're separated, do you need the VGLI, or is there other life insurance that might be more appropriate for you? What to do with your TSP? You can leave it there. You can roll it over into another employer's plan, or you can roll it over and invest it a little more aggressively if that's something that you want to do. But there's all options that you have. What other investments do you have? And, possibly a second career if that's something that you are looking at. So those are things that we look at. The bottom line is do you have a plan? And a financial plan can help you identify your priorities, set specific financial goals in place, assist with your everyday financial management, okay, and address all these risks that we were talking about this whole time, making sure that you've got some sort of financial plan that will meet those long-term goals. Having a written plan in place is by far the most successful reason that people are successful, okay? It's the most common reason that people are successful, is having a written plan in place. All right. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for you guys' time. My name is Sandy Bullock. My phone number is 910-387-1786. Again, that's 910-387-1786. If you wanted to get in touch with me, you can phone call or text that number. I believe Sergeant Martinson and Sergeant Hill have got those numbers for you. My email address is smbullock@firstcommand.com. Again, that's smbullock@firstcommand.com. If you have any questions or you just wanted to shoot me an email about something. All right. If there's any other questions, does anybody have any questions for me? Okay. I think that is that's pretty good with that, Sergeant Martinson.
Yep. And Sandy, the one thing about that, as far as I know about that increase in the SGLI, is that
Mhm.
that is automatic for everyone.
As far
From
as I'm
March 1st.
aware,
Yep.
however, I have had soldiers come in the last week and a half, and they have been telling me that their S1 is providing them something that they have to sign up for it. So double check on your end. But as far as I was aware, it was automatic, and the new premium was going to be about $30 or $31 or something like that. It was about $4 or $5, maybe $6 more than what they're paying now. But double check. As far as I am aware, I believe it is automatic. But I have had people come in and say that they've had to sign up for something. And
Okay.
but these are active duty soldiers too. So I don't know if that applies to National Guard and Reserve.
Right. Yeah. From what we've been reading, that is that even if you declined it before, it will be automatically set at 500,000, and then you will have to go back and adjust.
Okay, well that is actually a really good thing then, because then it doesn't leave anybody behind, you know.
Right. But we'll find more about that and try to get that out to everybody.
Okay. Is there anybody that had any questions or anything?
Nope, I didn't see anything. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next up, we will have Julianne from the Employment Center.
All right, how are you all? Let me get my slides up. Okay, so everyone's
Yep.
seeing this? Okay, perfect. Alrighty, good morning. My name is Julianne Breeden. I am an employment counselor with the North Carolina National Guard Employment Center. And for the next half hour or so, we will be reviewing some resume writing and interview tips. So just a little bit more about the National Guard Employment Center. If you are not aware, we are located in Joint Force Headquarters, but we have locations across the state. Some of the services we offer are career coaching and counseling. This is going to be one-on-one for your situation, resume preparation, interview prep, anything to do with USA job, federal job, state applications, LinkedIn profile development. We do host hiring events and job fairs. There's actually one going on today in Fayetteville. We have one coming up at Joint Force Headquarters in April. And we also help in local hiring fairs with other companies and organizations as well. Just general employment strategies, salary negotiation tips, anything that you would like to evaluate on your skills or what you can bring to the next position. And then we do have a partnership with the North Carolina Community College System for apprenticeships that you can earn from your position in the National Guard. And then we do have some training program assistance. So if you are looking to do some sort of certification program, please let us know and we can do some research or let you know about some opportunities that we are aware of and get you connected with those. So as I was saying, we have some locations across the state. We have 2 counselors in Wake County. We also have an individual out in Asheville, Morrisville, Charlotte, Greensboro, Fayetteville, Wilmington, and Winterville. So depending where you are, where you're looking for work within the state, we can get you connected with a local counselor to make sure that they're helping you in your region. So let's talk about some of the resume's do's and don'ts. We're going to start and really focus today on a private sector or a civilian resume. Federal resumes are different in style and really need to be tailored to the job application that you're applying to. So today we're just going to focus on private sector resumes. And then if you do want more individualized help or have questions about your resume, I would highly recommend registering and we can go through those together later on. But some of the do's and don'ts, you definitely want to be truthful. You don't want to exaggerate your experience because when it comes time for the interview or for if you get hired on, you want to make sure that you're truthful in what you can and can't do. You want to make sure this document is professional, concise, and that you still tailor your private sector resume to each of your job applications. So if you're applying for an operations manager with one company and another one, you want to make sure you're using the terms that one company is using in that resume and then change it to the other company's terms for the other resume and application. Some of the don'ts, you don't want to list everything you've ever done. You want to make sure that your experience is relevant to what you're applying to. So if at one time you worked at Starbucks and you were a barista and that's not relevant to what you're applying to, you may consider leaving that position off. It's not a one-size-fit-all document, so everyone's resume is going to look different. You definitely do not want to copy and paste from other people's resumes or from the job description. You want to make it your own, and then you do not want to use personal pronouns. So you never want to say I, me, or my on your resume. You're going to start with action verbs or power verbs to describe your experience. Why do you need a resume? It's really to build your personal brand. It's going to be that document that gets you in the door for an interview, and it really showcases your work history and what you can bring to the table. How long does someone look at a resume on average when they apply to a job? Usually this is around 5 to 7 seconds, especially nowadays, particularly with remote jobs, which is the hot demand right now. There's over 200 applicants, sometimes even over 400 applicants per position. So you really want to make sure your resume is clean so that that individual that's scanning that can really get a good idea right off the bat of what you can bring to the table. Yep, every job has an average of 250 applicants right now. So what we would recommend you creating is called a chronological resume. And here's some of the things that you will have in your resume. So first, on the top of the page, you're going to want to have your contact information. So a good phone number and an email address on your resume. Sometimes you can put your LinkedIn profile as well, a link to that profile if it is a well-developed LinkedIn and you have your connections built and your profiles built, you have that professional headshot on there, that's also appropriate to put at the top. You're going to have an executive summary at the top, which is going to be about 3 to 5 sentences that really shows that you've read the job description. You're showing the employer how you can meet those qualifications that they're looking for. And then you'll list your top 9 skills that you can bring to that role. So that's going to be in a bulleted list. We also call that the key qualifications. Then you're going to go into your work history, your professional experience, and that's going to be reverse chronological order. So you're going to start with your most recent position and then work backwards from there. You can include your education either before that or after. It doesn't matter where you put that in the page, but normally we recommend putting any higher education. If you have a high school diploma, we usually don't recommend putting that in there. Just leave that off. Just put any higher education, and then any specialized military schools that you go to that are relevant to the next career would be helpful as well. A lot of times some of the generalized like leadership courses or schools that you go to are great to highlight in that section. Additional sections, organizations and activities, volunteer, and any notable awards. These are optional, so if you have room, you can include these. Otherwise, I would focus more on the work history and professional experience if you don't have room. So if you are a coach for your son's soccer team, you can put that on there. Or if you're part of a professional organization that has to do with marketing and that's the career you're going into, so on and so forth, you can certainly highlight those at the bottom of your resume. Technical competencies are very important, especially if you're going into the IT field or you're wanting to work as a remote worker, to show that you can use, Microsoft products, any of the systems or software that the job is asking you to use. And then if you have any like certifications, words per minute sometimes is important depending on the role. So any technical competencies you should list at the bottom of your resume. Usually we would recommend for a private sector resume, 2 pages max. So when we're talking about the bullet points for your job history, you're going to want to include the following. So use quantifiable information whenever possible. So if you oversaw a team, make sure you put that it was a team of 5 or a team of 10, whatever that is. Or if you improved a process that increased sales by 10%, make sure you quantify any information you can to improve your document. You're going to start with that action verb, or what we call power verb. So instead of saying, I managed a team, just start with managed a team, or anything like that. Use that action verb to start out the bullet point. And then we also recommend using the PAR format, or you might have heard of it as a STAR format. This is also good for interviews, but it's going to be the problem, action, and result. So what problem was the company having? What action did you take to solve that problem? And then what was the result? So what result did you directly have on whatever that problem was? Most of the time you're going to use past tense, even if it's your current job. Maybe you only ran one event and that was done in the last couple of months or the last year. If you're still actively doing that action at work, you can use present tense, but most of the time you're going to use past tense. And then you're going to want to avoid fluffy language. If you had exceptionally ran this program, just take that word off and just put that you ran the program or whatever that might be. Avoid the fluffy language. There's a lot of expert or things like that. We'll just leave it off and keep it simple. So here's a resume example. This is probably going to be the first page of a resume. You can see at the top, like we had mentioned, first name, last name, city, state, and your zip code. Most of the time I would leave your address off of this document. One, if you're pushing this resume out to a lot of folks, either at networking events, lots of applications, it just helps protect your information. People don't need to know your address. You can, and most likely they're going to ask you for it on the application itself, or when you do get hired, they're going to ask you for your address. So just keep it simple, city, state. Another tip is if you're looking to move to a certain city, maybe out of state, you can put that on there just to show employers or help them think, oh, we don't have to wait 2 or 3 months for this individual to move to Montana or whatever it is. We don't have to, do a search that's maybe out of the city or state. If you're moving, if you're planning to move, you can put the city or state that you plan to move to on there. Phone number, email address, definitely make it professional. We've seen quite a variety of email addresses. Just keep it simple. First name, last name. You don't have to have the year you were born, the year you graduated high school, your dog's name on there. Just keep it simple. And like I said, LinkedIn you can keep on there as well. So at the top, you can see you have maybe the type of position you're looking for. You've got that summary in here about what you've done and how you can bring your experience to the next position. You've got those top 9 skills, and then reverse chronological order from the top backwards. So month is important, your start month and your end month. And then usually I do a 1-sentence summary of what you did overall in that job, and then you have 3 to 5 bullet points per position. So you can see there's 3, there's probably 6 in the next one, but usually I keep it to 5 if we can. Second page, you're going to start off with your first name, last name, and page 2 at the top, and then just continue with your work history. So you'll keep going down whatever is relevant. Usually I recommend keeping that to 10 years max. Anything prior to that might not be relevant to what you're doing, because you've most likely had gained, management experience or responsibilities since then. And we just don't want to, give any indication to age on a resume if we can avoid that. Education and certifications, like we talked about, you can put anything relevant to what you're going into down at the bottom. So here's an example of a not great resume. One, there's a lot of people that put headshots on a resume. You do not need that. A lot of times with big corporations, they're going to use applicant tracking systems. So any like images or graphics, charts, colors, highlighting, things like that are really going to get messed up in those systems, and it's not going to be clear to the employer on what experiences you're trying to convey in your resume. So keep it simple. No, different charts. A lot of folks try to do like one column having the, skills and education, and one column have the personal experience. Just keep it one solid flow throughout the document. Fancy fonts, again, they're hard to read, especially if you're doing underneath the size 11 font. Different fonts, not necessary. Graphics, logos, whatever it might be. LinkedIn has a feature where you can pull the resume from your LinkedIn profile, and it includes the graphics from your companies that you've worked at. Do not use those. So take any graphics off that you can. And then you really want to make sure your text is aligned. You don't want to have, columns or text all over the place. Just keep it clean, simple to get through the applicant tracking system. Your resume doesn't have to make you unique or pop. Just keep it simple. Now, there are certain circumstances where that might not be true. If you're in a marketing or a design career, you might want to have it a little more unique just because that's what you're going into. But for most folks, you're going to want to keep it simple. So resume example and resources, what we recommend is when you're applying for a job, print the job description and then use what we call the highlighter approach. So print that job description or pull it up in a Word document, go through the description and see what you've done and highlight those parts. So if you were a liaison at your job, whether it was between customers and the organization or whatever else, you've tracked things, you've driven improvements internally or externally, whatever you've done, highlight those things and then make sure those keywords or terms are directly inputted into your resume. So make sure, the first thing that they have in the bullet point is writing processes and procedures. You want to make sure you've shown in your last job and any other jobs that you have written processes and procedures before and you know how to do that. There are some other tools, and I think I have them in here. Yep, that will help you show that you either have the match of what the job description says in your resume or you do not. So any of these websites are perfect for you to be able to upload your resume, upload the job description, and it'll show you that you may have only a 50% match between your experience and what the job is looking for, or maybe I'll say you have 80 or 95% match. So it'll help you kind of tailor your resume to each of the job descriptions. For bullet point assistance, if you're not sure what you have, how to write what you've done in your past positions, check out ONET. You can put in a lot of different careers and it'll show you bullet points on what other people have done or what is expected that you have done in certain jobs. Same for Job Hero. And then just use other job postings. So if you were an operations manager and you just really are having a brain fart on what to put in your resume, type in operations manager and see what other job postings have. And most likely you've done a couple of those bullet points that you can use as inspiration to write your own. Okay, so let's move on to some interviewing tips real quick. So some quick facts about interviewing. On average, like we had mentioned, they have 250 applicants per position. Usually only 4 to 6 of these people are going to be called for an interview. So again, it's very important that you have that clear, concise resume to get to the interview point. Usually for larger companies, you're going to have 4 audiences that determine if you make it to the next steps. So like we said before, your resume might be run through an applicant tracking system or an ATS before it even gets to a screener. So this is going to be an entry-level individual that is screening. You know, if there was 400 applicants, maybe 50 got through. That screener is going to screen through those and then maybe put it through a recruiter. A recruiter is going to potentially give you a 5 to 10 minute call before screening to screen you before those applicants are put to the hiring manager to do the actual interview. So you might think you're doing an interview when in reality it's still a screening process when you're talking to the recruiter. Most commonly you'll have more than one interview. So you will likely have a phone interview at first. Maybe they'll do a virtual or in-person interview. And at that point, in-person might be a multi-step process where you're in front of a panel, you're in front of the manager, you're doing a presentation for the team. So there's a lot of different ways that your interview might look, but more than likely you're going to have more than one person you're talking to throughout the process. So before the interview, some things to prep. You're going to want to do some research on the company. So come in knowing what the values of that company are, what their mission is, how their employees are structured. What does that look like? Are you going to be on a team reporting to a manager? Are you going to be reporting directly to the CEO? What does that structure look like? How many other people are going to be on that team? You can look a lot of times at company strategic plans, annual reports, financial statements, anything that you can find on their website, pull and just do a review so you know what you're getting into. Because even though you're getting interviewed, this is also a time for you to figure out if you're a right fit for the organization, if they have similar values that you are wanting to work for. So research the position beyond the job description. Know the duties, who your boss might be, who your direct reports might be. LinkedIn is awesome for this. You can type in the organization and see where employees live, look at their titles, see what team they're on, what those folks have under their duties and accomplishments on LinkedIn. Do some informational interviews if you can. Start talking to folks in the company and ask them how they like their position, things like that. Spend some time on social media and LinkedIn. So if that company has a social media, Facebook page, Instagram, whatever it might be, just scroll through some of their posts and see what they're highlighting on their page. Reread your resume. Make sure you know what's on there because most likely they're going to ask you a question directly relating to something that you put on your resume. So if you put something, you need to make sure you can tell the story behind what that bullet point was. And then just prepare a portfolio. So make sure you have the job posting printed in case they refer to it in the interview. Make sure your resume is printed. Print a couple pages of your references so that you can pass them out if need be. Most of the time they'll have them already, but just in case, bring some of your notes. So if you had questions about some of their annual reports, things like that, You have those notes in front of you, a pen, paper, just to write some notes. It's a great as well to have that so you can write down the questions as they're asking them to you, so you can remember, potentially if there's a 2-part question, what both of those parts were. Bring your cover letter, and then we always recommend having 3 to 5 questions prepared to ask at the end of the interview. During the interview, you always want to make sure you're dressed for success. So again, do some research on the company. If they are a casual, potentially a startup company, still dress business casual, but just make sure you're matching what the company is going to expect. Most of the time, a suit with a jacket and a tie or slacks, whatever it might be, is going to be the best bet. But again, do some research and see what the expectations are for that company. Make sure you stay relaxed and smile. Feel free to ask for breaks, especially if you do have that multi-step interview. If you need a couple minutes just to refresh before you get into your presentation or whatever that might be, don't hesitate to ask for those breaks. Make sure your cell phone is off and you are ready for whatever environment that is. So if you are at home doing a virtual interview, close the door, make sure the background looks good, your laundry isn't on the floor behind you, your Wi-Fi is working, Zoom doesn't have to do this random update right before you get on, things like that. And make sure you're taking notes, and then again, ask questions along the way. So something that you are going to want to prepare either for networking or for the interview is going to be called your elevator pitch. So most of the times when you're in an interview, the first question is, tell us about yourself and why you want this position. So 30 seconds, just like you would be going up in an elevator or down an elevator, it's that time where you can sell yourself. And this is what you're going to include. So you're going to include who you are, what you have to offer, why you're there in the interview, and what you hope happens in the future. So show your appreciation of and or familiar with the company. Present yourself as adding an immediate value to that company. Make sure your message is concise yet informative. We've been to a lot of networking events where when you're asked to introduce yourself, folks go on for 5-10 minutes. It's like, okay, we don't need your whole life story. Keep it concise and informative. And then practice your pitch until it sounds natural. You don't want to act like you're reading off a script. You want to make it sound like it's a conversational piece. So just keep practicing, run it by a couple people, your family members, friends, and see what they think and get some feedback as well. There's lots of resources online if you type in elevator pitch, where it'll give you kind of a formula or a worksheet that you can fill out to start creating yours. Okay, so as we had mentioned with the resume, this is a great way to describe or answer problems and questions in the interview. So start with that situation, task, actions, and results. So if you have a question that says, tell us about a time where you had to work on a team. Maybe you describe what that team was working on, what problem or situation that you were doing. So kind of give the background to the story. Describe what needed to be done in that situation or what needed to be addressed. Describe the steps that you took. So even, as a team, what was something that you contributed individually to address the problem or situation. Don't underestimate the little things because they're trying to get those details about you and how you worked. And then highlight the positive impacts your actions had. So you individually, what actions you had and what the team had accomplished as a whole. So some of the common questions are going to be behavioral. So how did you handle a difficult situation or a customer or a peer or a supervisor? Definitely look up some behavioral questions online, and LinkedIn also has a tool where you can type in what type of job you're applying to, and it'll give you some interview questions based on that position. Give me an example of a success that you've had at work, a failure, how you worked under a tight deadline, a large team effort that you contributed to. So have some of these examples ready so that way you're not trying to think about them on the spot. Tell me a time when everything went wrong at work, or you were recognized for an accomplishment at work, and have something ready and prepared. So some of the characteristics or competencies that an interviewer might be looking for are the following. So do you have those critical thinking skills or decision-making skills, or what your thought process is? A lot of these aren't easily trained on the job. So are you bringing these skills to the position where even if you don't have direct experience with the company or organization, can you bring these skills along to make sure that you're training quickly and can get right onto the job? They're going to try to figure out what your problem solving approach is. If you are a self-starter, if you're willing to learn. So, potentially talk about some professional development you've done in the last couple of years, or what trainings you've done, or things that you've researched or read on your own to make sure you're improving as an individual. And then, are you a team player, or what your leadership style is? So if you are on a team or if you're leading a team, they're going to want to try to see how you interact with others. And then what your communication skills look like. So at the end of the interview, like we recommended, you should have 3 to 5 sentences prepared. So some of these are some examples of what you can ask. So just make sure, obviously, you have some prepared, but if they've already answered them in the interview, cross that off and come back to it, or think of another question while the interview is happening. So how is this position measured from a performance perspective? So what are the key performance indicators? You can say within 30 days, 90 days, that's usually going to be that probation period, or even 1 year, 2 years into the job. What constitutes as success in the role? So how am I going to be evaluated as an employee to make sure that I am continued to be employed at this organization long term? What do you consider to be the 1 to 2 most important attributes of top performers here? So this kind of shows, you're not coming in just to be there and work your hours and go home. You want to be one of the top performers, and you want to make sure that you know what attributes they're looking for to really contribute to the team. In your opinion, what do you see as the #1 priority for someone new in this role in the first 30 days? So this shows you're wanting to come in and hit the ground running. You really want to make sure you're contributing right when you get there, rather than get acclimated and see what others are doing before you start contributing. Can you describe how the role interacts or collaborates with others? So this kind of gives you an idea of what team are you going to be on, what stakeholders you're going to be working with, whether it's within the organization or outside community partners. Is there any other community organizations or companies that you're going to be working with regularly, just to kind of see, okay, are these people going to be folks that I can see myself succeeding with or enjoying working with, or is this not going to be a good fit for me? And then after the interview, always follow up via email within 24 to 48 hours. This is going to show the employer that you enjoyed your experience, that you're grateful for their time, and you can always include something particular from that conversation. So if you connected with somebody, based on where you grew up, or a certification that you both had, or that you really enjoyed what they said about one of the key parts of your position, talk about that personally in the email, so they just have that on their mind, that you are grateful for the time and you'd be still considering to work at their company. And then just consider some pros and cons. If you have multiple interviews going on, what is the pros of the position? What about the salary? What about the benefits package? What can I, break down to see what's going to be the best opportunity for you, so you're ready to either accept or deny a potential offer. So right after the interview, if you know it's not going to be a good fit, and no matter how much money they're going to give you, you're not going to accept it, you can certainly call HR and just pull out of the process at that time. Or you can wait until the offer comes and either try to negotiate a salary that's going to make you accept the position, or just kind of wait and see what your other options are. So we can definitely help you think through ways to negotiate either a higher salary, benefits, more time off, technology, things like that, hybrid options. So if that's something you're interested in, please register for services so we can help you talk through those conversations. So again, if you'd like to connect with us, this is our office phone number. This is our main line, so we can get in contact with you. The easiest way to register is going to the website here. It's a probably 30-second registration process. So just click that link to the website. I don't think I mentioned this, but we also do help service members in any branch. It doesn't have to be a National Guards member, as long as they're living in the state of North Carolina, any veteran, as well as spouses and working age dependents. So anyone that is wanting to work, a high schooler that's getting their first job, if they are your dependent, we can certainly help them with their resume and job search skills. There's 2 different registration forms on the website. One is for military and one is for spouse and dependent. So just make sure you're clicking that right link and we'll get you connected to an employment counselor in your area. And then lastly, we do have a Facebook page. A lot of times we are getting contacted by companies that are trying to fill roles and are happy to take our referrals to fill those roles. So sometimes we post those on our social media. We also do have a LinkedIn group as well if you want to search for the NCNG Employment Center. And again, we'd love to connect with you, so please register and reach out. Any questions?
I don't see any questions, Julianne. Thank you very much. I also like the stuff you included about in the interview. You're also interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Julianne.
Thank you.
And Ken, one of the reasons, Julian, I added in the chat, ask them why the position is open. And I gave the example because, for instance, if it's open because somebody quit, you would need to ask that question because that might have a difference. That might tell you something about the work environment. If it's open because somebody got fired, you may have those same characteristics or traits that person has. So it becomes another way of having a conversational interview. And I agree that I think that your questions were wonderfully conversational.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, Sporty, you're up next.
Oh, and I'm running my mouth and I need to be ready. Here I come. Bam. All right. What happened? Share. Boom. Okie dokie. Okay, well, I haven't been married for as long as Chaplain Windley, but I have been communicating for a long time. All right, so I'm gonna do what I could consider putting the cherry on the cake, even about some of the last things that we've been talking about, because interviewing does connect to it as well in terms of talking about communication. So, but remember last month, how many of you read this slide wrong, right? And you read it as, what if I told you you read the first line wrong? Remember how some of us did that? Okay. And that becomes a good way for us to kick this off. And then we also talked about how one of the biggest challenges in communication is that we tend to see and hear what we want to see and hear. Especially that was during the reintegration How I See It class. I don't know if you remember that, but that was when we did it. We're bringing these 2 back because I want to address not just seeing and hearing, but also I want us to address understanding what we hear. And that's why I say it's the cherry on top of what the chaplain was saying. We need to understand what we hear. So did you hear what I actually meant is what's important. So we're gonna realize that so much depends on whether you're on the 6 side of the 9 or the 9 side of the 6. And that really does make the difference. And a huge reminder once again that you don't have to be right all the time. But you can. You can be right all the time. It's all how you want to look at it. And I think that's why I really like that quote the chaplain put up with the Roy Bennett's quote about also how often people are listening to reply. And then I put in the chat, listen to the paragraph, not the sentence. And to continue that, I call that sportyism number 3. Listen to the paragraph, not the sentence. Allow people to finish what they're saying before you judge the content of what they're saying. See, so often we hear that one sentence that we disagree with, and then we kind of shut down. And so that becomes the key is, yeah, really don't, be careful. We all do it. PS, by the way, a lot of people, yeah, we listen to reply instead of listening to understand. So thank you for that, Chaplain. So our objective is to redefine. I don't think it's just to define effective communication, but it's to redefine it as well as identify some effective communication practices. And we want to understand the communication differences and then also how to practice active listening, as Chaplain referred to. And I cracked up laughing at during your presentation, Chaplain, because here's that that texter. In this case, it's the kid instead of your wife. But it's just, we also have to remember that email is not texting. And have you ever said, okay, I sent you the email. Did you get it? Well, no, email may not get there as quick as texting. So, man, technology is a wonderful thing, right? But check this out. This is not a good definition. Okay. So this is not a good definition or mindset to have when we're talking about communicating. I'm just gonna, say whatever comes off the top of my mind. A lot of people say that to me. They say, "Well, Sporty, you say whatever comes to your mind." I say, no, I say about 50% of what comes to my mind. A lot of stuff I really just don't say. But you have to think about what you're going to say before you say it a lot of times. So this is not a good definition of mindset, but these are. These are good definitions because the key is we need to think about how to best get what I referred to earlier, one another's personal win. So we want to make sure that we've got the exchange going, and we want to make sure that we're exchanging the right messages that are going to be helpful so that what we receive works for us. And here's the exchange process. It has to happen in content, which is what is being expressed, and relationship, which is how the feeling is being expressed depending upon the relationship of the persons. For instance, Chaplain and his son's conversation, that relationship that would be different than Chaplain and one of the soldiers' conversation. See, that the thing with communication is 55-38-7. 55% of your communication is how you look, 38% is how you sound, and only 7% are the words that you use. So depending on that relationship that you have with the two communicators, that's going to change your tone, especially. And then that's also going to change that body language that we've heard talked about through Chaplain, as well as through Jillian with interview skills. The body language makes a huge difference. So so think about that. Those are the two levels of the exchange that we want to see that and make sure that they are working together. And it's interesting because Ms. Higgins talked about the difference between the direct and the indirect cues that we have to get. Where she said, "Well, I'm joking, but this stuff could be serious," and it is. And me, I try to deliver in a humorous format, but I'm very serious about what I'm saying. And like one of the things I always tell people, I laugh and joke, but I don't play. Because we are delivering information that could be changing somebody's life, and we need to be conscious of it. I remember my great niece at the time, so this was like 2 years ago, so she was 14, and on Instagram, she kept posting these self-deprecating humor. You got to be really careful, about her looks and this and that, and I would go and like them and comment this and that every now and then. But after all, I felt like I saw a pattern of her consistently speaking against herself. And so I sent her an inbox message. I said, "Look, by the way, self-deprecating humor is wonderful because it means that you're able to laugh at yourself. But I did what I learned through being affiliated with the military. I said, are you having suicidal thoughts? Do you really dislike yourself that much? And I let her know. I said, and I need to know, because if you are, I want to address it. I said, but if you're not, I'm willing to go along with your jokes. Something to that effect. I don't remember exactly how I said it, but she got back to me. And she said, no, Uncle Sporty, I'm fine. And you know, and you know what? I noticed a shift in her posts, because I just looked at it and said, man, wow, I can't sit here and just act like I don't see this. Let me say something. And once I said something, now she saw it. And therefore, it changed her line of joking. So, realize that it does make a difference when you decide to ask somebody if they need help. So, similar to how we are always encouraging you to make sure that you're asking for help. Okay. Okay. Remember, like I said, I'm going to be trying to still here. Okay. Thanks you. All right. Okay. But now, if you've downloaded the handout, you'll see an exercise that first asks you to just consider how comfortable you are in communicating in 5 situations. Okay. And it just is similar to how we did with the Charles Schultz questions. It's just asking you to think about how comfortable you are in handling each of the 5 situations on the handout. But I think that they get answered in just these 4. They get covered in just these 4. Because your response to the second question of that bottom, which would you like to improve, to me is the key. So it's a self-reflective exercise, and it explains it. If you haven't downloaded yet, don't worry, you still can later. But I want to tell you how to use it and really confirm what information you're going to be getting from it, so you can pace yourself. And you can just do it right now, just looking at this, asking, are you comfortable saying no? Are you comfortable expressing your feelings, listening, controlling your anger? And then, so you can prioritize those in the order of which one you're more comfortable with. And now you have to ask, which would you like to improve? Because maybe, you know what, hey, this is where I am on listening, and I'm fine with that compared to the other 3. Remember, we did the balance wheel and we talked about prioritizing our lives. Everything doesn't have to be a 10. And then also, even when I started out with the balance session last month, I talked about how on the screen they showed that the objectives are to address some situations, some characteristics that you are required to change. And I said, you know what? That's what the slide says, but let me change it. And I changed it to address situations that you choose to change, because you're not always required to change. That takes away that personal win. That takes away that joy. That takes away the individuality and how important your piece of the puzzle is. See how it all wraps together? And so that lets you know that we're wrapping this thing up. But, so really, what would you like to improve? And don't just be talk for the sake of talk. If you want to improve something, then you have to be willing to make that commitment. So this is where, even when we go back to thinking about that balance wheel last month, it's being honest with yourself. This is where I am in this. And remember, it was 8 aspects of our life. This is where I am in that aspect. And you know what? What if that aspect were to increase 2 points, what would I need to be doing? And again, so it's checking out what your priorities are and recognizing you have choices. That's what we have to, I think it's so important to be conscious of, and that we have choices. And then also, I think that reminds, that connects, I think, well to what Ashley suggested about scripting things out. Sometimes you have to script things out so that you can really know how you want to handle it. And so one way to find out whether or not you want to improve is the difference is through the use of I or you statements. And I know it says you or I, but I'm saying I or you, because see, you statements can put people in a defensive mode. You did this. That puts people, no, I didn't. See, and it becomes defensive. I statements, they take responsibility and they ask for understanding. There's a wonderful scenario on the handout that makes for good reading, research, and then consideration. Now, you won't handle these statements as clinically smooth as they are, but the key is that you will get to know how to use them. And this is where, Jillian, is it Jillian or Julian? And I apologize because I wrote it down, but this is, it is Julian. Okay. Julianne. Okay. This is where the I is important. The I statements are important for your communication. Again, what they do is they focus on this is how I feel. See, you can't tell me I don't feel this way. I feel this way when you do that. So it's just reversing the use of the pronoun so you're not attacking the other person versus making them aware of what they're doing. And here are some samples of how an I statement asks for understanding rather than putting someone on defense. I feel frustrated. You can't tell me I don't feel frustrated when you did do this. So I'm not telling you you need to change that. No, I feel frustrated when you do this. Now, if that's the right partner for you or a good friend, they'll consider what they're doing. Because maybe they, hey, you know what? It didn't dawn on me that was frustrating you. It didn't dawn on me that was insulting you. It didn't dawn on me that made you feel nervous. Yeah, even with my great niece, it didn't dawn on her that when see how I actually use that in another way by me saying, when you post these self-deprecating humor things, I feel like there may be a challenge and that you may be considering suicide and ending your life. See, so there's another way. Remember, this doesn't always have to be clinical the way you see it on the slide. But once I said that to her, she couldn't say, oh, you stupid, I'm not. No, she said, oh, wow, no, I didn't realize that. And then she changed it. Okay, I'm disappointed when my plans don't go according to schedule. Not you screwed up my plans. I'm disappointed when my plans don't go according to schedule. So you work that out. I feel sad when people let me down. I like to say, be careful about, being let down also it comes back to you is because now who do you have expectations of? If someone is consistently letting you down, you have to change your expectation level of your relationship with that person. Maybe you lower your expectations and now they won't let you down. And that doesn't make them a bad person, PS, by the way. Maybe that's how and who they are. So therefore you have to make the adjustment and say, well, you know what? This person is in the first row of my life right now. Maybe I need to move them to the second row. Or maybe I need to move them to the third row. Or maybe I need to take them out of the theater. The I is so important because it's not only asking for understanding from someone else, but there it goes, that PMS, the spiritual. It's the I, it's understanding who I am, what I need, and how you fit into my life. No different than a job interview. That's what the interview is for, is to see if they have a spot in this place for you. But you have to see, do I have a spot in my life for what y'all have going on at this job and this company? I call that interviewing on offense. A lot of times people tend to interview, and again, that's why I really like Julianne's presentation, because sometimes people interview on defense. Well, I don't know if I don't know if I'm the right fit. No, you're on offense. Who was it? Was it David or somebody said, his star was going to shine too bright? Yeah, I'm on offense. I'm bringing a bright star. So let me see if they can handle my brightness. Because guess what? Again, we joke about it, but if they can't handle the brightness of my star, this is not the place for me to rent out my time. Because that's what I think a job is. It's renting out your time. Remember job, J-O-B, just over broke? Okay. So, as you rent out your time, think about who you're giving it to. And be careful, use your benefits and get the job search the way you need it to be handled. Get it in advance. Your interview starts the moment you step out your door. It's not strictly when you see a job posting. You're always interviewing, because at your current job, the things you're doing are preparing you to answer the questions at the interview of the next job. That's what she was just talking about. So you're always interviewing. And that becomes a key that you always have trying to be in control of who you are and recognizing who you are, because now then when you see, oh, wait a minute, this is what they're looking for, that I would be the perfect fit. And the reason I say that, PS, by the way, before I move on, is because I think it's important to not let ourselves get in a desperate situation where we have to have a job. See, so recognize that you're starting out, you're interviewing all along the way so that you don't have to be desperate and take a job that you don't really want. You can, you know what? I can do another interview. And think about this, because sometimes people say, well, you know what, this will do until I find something else. Once you take something that will do until you find something else, you shorten your search for something else. And therefore, while you're spending that 2-3 months in a place that you don't really want to be, you're passing up your ideal opportunity and chance, because there's a good chance you could have met somebody that has the right network and move to get you into that job, or or position, or you could have you would have seen the posting, because maybe because you're in this other job you can't respond. There's just a lot of things to do when you short circuit and short sell yourself. So really be conscious of that. And then lastly, I'm anxious when I can't get in touch with you. Again, these may also be some feelings that you felt during the deployment and during the separation. Okay, so see how you can transfer those over to what's going on in your life right now. All right, so where was I? Okay, so these are samples. Here's some these are samples about how the I statements will help ask rather than put somebody in defense. But the key goes back to slide number 1, because what do these questions do? They say whether we're on the 6 side or the 9, because you can't tell me how I feel about the way I do because you're on the 9 side of the 6. It's always going to be perspective and where we stand and how we see ourselves. So see if you could think of any situation in your life where this type of technique can be used. And you see, I just gave you one when I talked about my great niece. Okay, but where in your life can this be used? And it doesn't have to only be your partner or your family. And in fact, I gave the example, it could be especially effective at your job. Okay, especially effective at your job. And in fact, I wrote some notes while the other speakers were talking. When who was it? Was it Jillian, or was it? It was Miss Higgins, who talked about how self-care, and how the traditional stereotype. I don't think stereotype is the word, but is that mothers are always not taking care of themselves because they're busy taking care of everybody else. And I do say Happy Mother's Day to you, but you know what? I want to upgrade that to caregivers, because it's who's in the mothering situation. And so we're looking at the title of mother as the caregiver slot, but it's really who is the caregiver. And are you practicing good self-care as a caregiver? How can you take care of the people you love if you don't do what? Take care of yourself first. So I'm not knocking what she said. I just want to make sure we add to it. And why? Because we're talking about communication. And sometimes what happens is people will say, well, I don't fit that example, and they check out. And so it's not easy. That's also why I say, that when I say, well, this is not a good definition, I'm just going to say what comes off the top of my head. A lot of stuff you want to think about before you have to say it. And when you're going to be interviewing, you really have a great opportunity to think in advance of what you want to say and convey with what you're talking about in terms of being who you are. So thank you for that. And then and again, that's that PMS. Now, another concept that you may want to get a hold of is the difference between complaints and criticisms. Okay, you see, a complaint is what you did, not who you are. And the scenarios that are used for the you and I statement have this component as well. We want you to focus on the complaints rather than the criticism. See, again, the complaint, oh, this is, you made me feel this way, versus, oh, you always do this. That's a complaint of how I feel versus a criticism of who you are. So that, again, on your handout, if you haven't downloaded it yet, please download it after we're finished. Always good to have a good resource at hand, because you can read some of the things, as clinical as they may sound. Remember the 3 R's? That's the research. The real stuff, how does this apply to me? Do I see myself in that? The resource, well, it could be the handout. It could be the next conversation that you have. Okay, so make sure that you get the handouts and just find out if it's something that you can use. And the last thing you'll find out that you'll find on the handout is what the chaplain referred to, and that is the concept of active listening. The concept of active listening, which is actually going to be supported by what's called the speaker listener technique. All right. But here are some benefits of active listening. It leads to the perception that the message is being understood. See, what active listening is talking about is looking at the person's, you stop. It's like that slide with the kid. He was, yeah, send me the link and I'll do that. No, it's stop doing what you're doing and pay attention. I think I posted in the chat. We really cannot multitask and give any task the quality that it needs. Your brain is only geared to do one thing at a time. We multitask, but we are given a portion to each one of those tasks. And so what active listening is asking you to do is stop texting, stop writing, and just look at me and talk to me. It's not going to stop you from thinking about something else, but that's why it says it's the perception that the message is being understood, because I see the eye contact. Remember, 55% how you look. And so, so you're looking at me versus doing this. See, that becomes a part of the communication, and that's the active listening part. Also, active listening involves, and Chaplain mentioned it, but let me put it in terms to restating a version of the message. You can either parrot or paraphrase. Parroting is saying the exact same words that you just heard, and that confirms the understanding. Have you seen the Red Bull commercial where the parrot comes say, stop just repeating what everybody says, okay? But that's parroting, repeating the exact same, letting the person know, okay, so this is what you said, and then you give them the exact words. Or you can paraphrase so that you can make sure that you're getting it understood in your language. And so you say to the person, oh, so in other words, you're saying this. And so that becomes paraphrasing. So that's part of active listening. And then asking questions when appropriate, okay? In other words, one thing you might want to do, and again, this is something you can do in an interview, ask if you can, or advise and let somebody know that you're going to be taking notes as they speak, so as not to interrupt their flow. Look, I'm going to be taking notes while we're talking. And again, it sounds clinical in our home conversation. This is, I think, a wonderful addition to your interview skills. And again, you can ask Julian if you think that's true. But I pretty much, I can't see a company telling you, no, you can't take notes. I think it will also add to them saying, oh, wow, this person is introspective. As well as, again, I'm not going to cut you off, but something you say is going to spark a question. And now what did she say? Don't repeat what you already had as one of your questions. If they answered that question, you don't have to repeat. Oh, well, you know what? You answered this question that I had. You don't have to say that. You can go on to the next question, because something they say is going to spark another question from you, and that's what you want to be able to do. So ask them if it's okay if you take notes, so that you don't repeat them, because guess what? Where am I? Okay, y'all know I lose my place when I try to talk on it. Okay. Okay. Also, you don't want to interrupt their flow, as well as it takes you back to restating. The restating the version, the paraphrasing or the parroting. So by asking the question, you can also now paraphrase to make sure that you got the understanding. And then moderate to high nonverbal involvement. Again, are you sitting and shifting, while they're talking? Be really conscious of your posture while you're talking. Now, those of you who haven't downloaded the handout yet, you'll find the rules for this technique, the speaker listening technique. And the key rule is what? Only one person has the floor at a time. That is one of the hardest things that we find in communication. I tell you, I actually laugh because one of my monikers, I call myself the master of listening. I'm a great listener, and a lot of my friends take advantage of that. I'm conscious of it, but I'm cool with it. But let me tell you why. Because what will happen is we'll be talking, and I say something, and then it sparks a memory, excuse me, or a thought on their part, and they cut me off. Oh yeah, that's right, buddy. And which it's not always it's not necessarily a bad cutoff. It's just like a wonderful continuation of my thought, but they don't give me the floor back. And then after a while, if I see them doing it repeatedly, I understand. I'm saying, you know what? I'm okay with that. It's a decision on my part. See, it's still a decision on your part where you're going to go in the conversation with this person. So I say, you know what? I'll just forget. We don't need to talk about what I wanted to talk about. In fact, one of my little sisters, I call her my little sister. I called her the other day about something I wanted to talk about. Once I started talking about it, it made her talk about something to give me an example that she was getting what I was saying, and then she just went on and erased and at the end she said, "Thank you for letting me ramble." And in my mind, I laughed because I said, "Yeah, I did just let you ramble," and I didn't bother saying, "You know what? But this is what I wanted to talk about," because it was cool. It wasn't life threatening, but that's why you want to be conscious of it. But this is they give you a wonderful rules that you can follow, but the key is only one person can talk about it at a time. And here's where we're going to do the exercise. If we were in person, here's where we would do that exercise in terms of a yellow ribbon. We would do that speaker listening technique. So again, as you take a look at it, you'll see how it would go. And I love using this slide because you know what, why the chicken cross the road? It's all how you decide to look at it and what you're going to do and laugh. Let me see what we got, Shema. I have a bad attitude of cutting people off. Okay, you do that too. Good. Okay, I ain't mad at you. But know that you're not always a bad person when you do it, because you may have someone like me who's a good listener. And you know what? And I mean, it's a fine line because you may cut somebody off. And when my sister, took over the conversation, what she had to talk about, I did feel, you know what, that is more relevant than what I was needing to talk about. It helped. It kind of helped me deal with what my little rant would have been, because I listened to hers instead. So it's relative. So I'm with you, Shamia. Not a problem. And I don't have my glass on. I think that's Shamia. Yeah, I got it right. Okay, and I hope I'm to pronounce it right as well. Okay, don't. Hey, your MRT skills. Don't let the negativity bias knock you down. Don't instantly decide that you have made a mistake. It's all understanding the relationship. And now that goes back. See how these key points come back together? It goes back to that key point about the relationship part, the content and the relationship, depending on your relationship with the person, whether you just cut them off or added to and solve what they needed to talk about, depends on your relationship. When Chaplin's son said, "Dad, I just need you to," what did he say? I just need you to pay attention. Thank you. Kudos to that kid. Does your child have that type of freedom? And of course, I'm sure he didn't say, "Look, Dad, shut up. I need you to pay attention." No, it's a relationship and an understanding. Say, "Look, Dad, right now, I just need you to pay attention," because that's the comfort that he has set, the tone that's set in the household, and that's what you want to do, is make sure that you have that tone set for how people know how to approach you. You did pronounce it perfectly without assistance. Oh, great, thank you. Well, you know why, Shamia, because here, I'm gonna put my real name, my birth name in the chat. R-Y-S. Did it work? Oh, y'all see it coming up on my name anyway. Rispodi is my birth name. They pronounce like R-I-S dash P-S-P-O, Rispo, and then D-E-E, Rispodi. And so I've always been very name conscious. And there's another thing. Again, I haven't lost track of where we're going with this, y'all. If you have a difficult name to pronounce, and this is a key in your interview as well, the interviewer may say, "Am I pronouncing it?" And they say, "Well, it's okay. If your name is Anthony and you don't want to be called Tony, don't say I don't care." And someone says, "Should I call you Anthony or Tony?" You say, "Well, whichever you want." No, I want to be called Anthony. And so, Shamia would want to make sure that she breaks it down by syllables. That, believe me, that's a part of the interview. They may not even ask you that, but they want to know. So maybe that's something that you can break that ice with and talk about as you're walking back to go into the interview room. Anyway, there'll be a spot. And you can even use that when you're talking about that question about tell me about a time where you had to solve a problem. See, you may end up finding a way to work that in. I just thought of that off the top of my head because said, well, you know what, one of the things that because of I'm very name conscious, that impacts how I relate to the people on my team. I want to make sure that I get the respect of someone calling me by my rightful name. So therefore, I slow down and I make sure that I get their rightful name so that I'm not addressing them in a way that insults them. See, so that's something that you would think about in advance so that you can talk about it and discuss it. So good. Thank you for all of y'all who are still here. Good to see you posting that in there. All right. But that's one of the things. So glad Shami, yay. I'm name sensitive. That's what I got to do. All right. But remember that, where am I? Only one. And we would do this in person. But remember, all of the exercises, and you see them on your handout, are incremental changes that we've talked about already. That's why when Chaplain was, I said, great, I'm going to put the cherry on the cake. We've discussed it already. We're going to get, I haven't spent long on these slides because they've been discussed. They've been great samples and examples. Synchronicity is important. And remember, everything connects to one another. All of these exercises and ideas are incremental changes that we've talked about, and they're going to be uncomfortable at the beginning. When you first start to use any of the exercises or suggestions, they're going to be uncomfortable at the beginning. Remember, that's the change and the challenge. And maybe you have to go 0 and 13. But remember what I said, okay? That you can call a timeout. Remember what Steve said. You can be patient and have faith. And then remember why Susie says we should be. And that is because we all smile in the same language. So take the time to talk to one another. Yet more importantly, take the time to listen and hear what is meant, not what you want to hear and what you want to see. What has the person said and what do you see? That becomes the key. And if you didn't get a chance to fill out the questionnaire on my QR code and you still like to keep in touch, please do it. There's my website which will help you get in touch. And you can also go back and freeze that screen and click on the QR and fill it out. I'd love to have you do that as well, because I'm going to post how that technology works. I'm going to post it here so that you can see how it adds them all up and the data that you can get, the research versus the real stuff and the resource. Okay. But that's one of the things that I want you to do. But so if you like to keep in touch. Now, if you didn't, you can reach me through my website if you didn't do this, the QR. But remember, there's a high calling on your life as military families. America asks you to turn your emotions on and off at the drop of an order, and you do it. But have you stopped and given yourself credit and recognized what a treat it is to be able to serve you and help you live a better life so that you can not only hear what is meant, but make the decision to win and recognize that without you, no puzzle is complete. Thanks, and God bless you. Ciao.
Thank you, Sporty. We are running a little ahead, and I don't see our next presenter, which is safety, yet. Is the safety person on to give the brief? All right. Well, not hearing them, this is one thing I wanted to share. They had-
Ken, one of the reasons Julie and I
Go ahead.
no, that was me not being on mute. Let me get off.
Oh,
That was
okay. One thing I did want to share, and this is not necessarily for you for this deployment, but those who have gone on an overseas deployment, there is now an open hazards, airborne hazards and burn pit registry. If you did serve in any of those fields of operation during that time frame, make sure that you go online and you register for the burn pit registry. That will put you in as one of the members that were overseas during that period of time, and that way the VA also knows that there may be some additional health effects in the future that may come from you being exposed to those health problems.